Chapter 841. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more interesting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. That sentence was not the most fatal. Gu Jiao shrugged and said, "Actually, it's fine if you don't tie it up. The Black Wind King will keep an eye on your horse and not let it run around." His own horse had to be tied up to prevent it from getting lost, but other people's horses could not only discipline themselves, but they could also discipline other people. Other horses. Tsun Takashi felt a blow to his soul. He did not want to talk to this kid anymore. Tsun Takashi walked forward with a dark expression. Gu Jiao followed behind him with his head held high. Mu Qingchen cautiously observed the surroundings and also strode forward to catch up. Tsun Takashi snorted. "Kid, aren't you afraid that I'll set you up?" Gu Jiao said casually, "If I don't go back, the tens of thousands of captives in Suyong City will all die with me. You can calculate that yourself." Tsun Takashi gritted his teeth. "How can you be so cruel at such a young age?" Gu Jiao smiled faintly. "Thanks for the compliment." Tsun Takashi almost choked on his words. Generals often had bad tempers. This was a double-edged sword. It could stimulate their combat power and fighting spirit on the battlefield. The downside was that they would be easily angered off the battlefield. Tsun Takashi was heavily injured. For the sake of his own life, Tsun Takashi decided not to talk to him anymore. The group went around a hill and came to a narrow stream. In front of them was the valley where the two countries intersected. The Liang Kingdom's army had set up camp here. They had obviously just arrived and were still tidying up the place. "We'll go after they sleep," Tsun Takashi said. "Okay," Gu Jiao replied. Tsun Takashi realized that he had used the tone of a general. This cruel kid did not seem to think that there was anything wrong with being ordered around by a captive. He did not get angry or refute. The group lay in the grass behind the rocks. It was late autumn in the 9th month of the lunar calendar. The night wind at the border was chilly. It made their hands and feet feel cold. The ground was cold as well. Mu Qingchen subconsciously touched the back of Gu Jiao's hand and whispered, "Why is it so cold?" "Is it cold?" Gu Jiao didn't feel it. Mu Qingchen wanted to take off his outer robe and give it to her, but he was wearing night clothes. "They're asleep," Gu Jiao suddenly said. Mu Qingchen looked in the direction of the voice and saw that the last group of soldiers from the state of Liang had also entered the tent. Only 100 soldiers were left to patrol in different places. After observing for a while, they had a rough idea of the patrolling route. Seizing a wrong peak, a group of people sneaked into the camp of the Liang army. Their weapons were in the supply camp at the back of the camp, and so were their provisions. The moon was dark and the wind was strong. It was a good time to burn the provisions, but unfortunately, they couldn't. Gu Jiao gestured to the 10 people. Mu Qingchen and the others understood and took out a pair of silver-threaded gloves and put them on. Tsun Takashi's mouth twitched when he saw that these people had taken away all his gloves. Gu Jiao took out 5 brocade pouches made of special materials. Each of the pouches contained a long strand of snowfield silk. After distributing the brocade pouches, the group began to move. The scouts and Tsun Takashi were responsible for keeping an eye on the patrolling army. For them who had the snowfield silk, it was not difficult to cut the chariots and ladders. However, the key was to prevent the remaining parts from falling to the ground. Wanren Chong was good at this. He pointed at a few parts and said, "Cut here. The chariots won't fall apart on the spot." Gu Jiao and Mu Qingchen each pulled one end of the Snow Domain Heavenly Silkworm silk. Mu Qingchen used his Qing Gong to leap to the other side of the war chariot. The two exchanged a look and cut off the silk. It was silent, as if he was cutting the body of a cake. It was extremely smooth. Gu Jiao exclaimed, "Wow! Her obsessive-compulsive disorder was cured." Gu Jiao had a lot of fun. No, the mission was going smoothly. "Someone is coming. Let's retreat," Tsun Takashi said in a low voice. Gu Jiao smacked her lips. I didn't cut much. Everyone was dumbfounded. There were so many chariots and ladders, but we only cut a little. Some people didn't even have time to cut them, but you took all of them. Let's go. Mu Qingchen leaped over with his lightness skill and returned the snowfield silk to her. Gu Jiao said, "Oh." She slowly put it away and cut another part of the chariot when no one was paying attention. Mu Qingchen was speechless. When Dalyong's soldiers patrolled, they had already left. Among these people, only Gu Jiao didn't know Qinggong. Mu Qingchen held her soft and slender waist and brought her back and forth between the various large tents. Tsun Takashi was injured and could not use lightness skill. Li Shan and Zhao Dengfeng took turns to carry him. When they passed by a tent with a dim oil lamp, Gu Jiao suddenly patted Mu Qingchen's arm and signaled him to stop. Mu Qingchen gently landed on the grass. What is it? He asked with his eyes. Gu Jiao pointed at a tent about 10 meters away. I saw someone go in. The others also stopped beside them. They hid in the dark and looked at the tent that Gu Jiao pointed at. Gu Jiao thought for a while and gestured to the others to leave first. She, Mu Qingchen, Li Shan, and Zhao Dengfeng stayed behind. Although they were unwilling to leave, it was a military order. Zhao Dengfeng, Wan Rencheng, and the others quietly disappeared into the night. Gu Jiao and the others approached the tent. They hid behind the tent. Gu Jiao and the other two put their ears to the tent wall. Li Shan was responsible for keeping an eye on the surroundings. Men's voices came from the tent. They were speaking the language of the Yen Kingdom, but one of them was not very fluent. The one who was not fluent said, "Is this your sincerity? The king of the Yen Kingdom is trying to capture you. Without the protection of the Liang Kingdom, you will soon become his prisoners." Everyone understood. One was a general of the Liang Kingdom, and the other was a rebel army of the Yen Kingdom. It was either the Han clan or the Nangong clan. Obviously, the latter was more likely. I want to see your General Chu. The others did not recognize the voice, but Tsun Takashi recognized it immediately. It was the fourth son of the Nangong clan, Nangong Ju. Nangong Zei and Nangong Ju were guarding the border all year round, so Tsun Takashi was very familiar with them. The general of the Liang Kingdom said, "General Chu is tired from the journey. He has already rested." Gu Jiao translated, "Your position is not high enough. Talking to me is already a gift to you." Nangong Ju's aura was tinged with anger, but it was quickly suppressed. "Do you really think the Black Wind Camp is so easy to deal with? I am not afraid to tell you that with your military strength, without the help of the Nangong clan, you will definitely be defeated by Xiao Lulang." Gu Jiao clenched her small fist. Mysterious energy. I am so awesome. So, he really is from the Nangong clan. Gu Jiao looked at Tsun Takashi sympathetically. No wonder his face turned so ugly. Look, this is the Yen Kingdom's lord you are loyal to, colluding with the traitor of the Liang Kingdom. The general of the Liang Kingdom said arrogantly, "Don't try to scare me. You lost because you are not capable. Do you think that the Liang Kingdom's army is as useless as the remnants of the Nangong clan? If that General Tsun Takashi comes to the Liang Kingdom, we won't even let him be a chili arch." Gu Jiao nodded with praise. "Wonderful. Go on, you are an ally tonight." The general of the Liang Kingdom said calmly, "The Liang Kingdom has no need to cooperate with the Nangong clan." Nangong Ju said with cold sweat, "Aren't you just bullying us because we have lost our military strength? But as far as I know, General Tsun Takashi of the Nangong clan is not dead. He was only captured and is being treated in Tsuyong City. There are nearly 60,000 soldiers in Tsuyong City. As long as Tsun Takashi leads them to cooperate with you, the Liang Kingdom's plan to attack the city will be twice the result with half the effort." Gu Jiao looked at Tsun Takashi sympathetically again. Tsun Takashi looked calm on the surface, but the blood seeping out of his chest betrayed his emotions. The general of the Liang Kingdom seemed to be interested in this proposal, but he held back his bargaining chip and tried his best to negotiate. "Tsun Takashi deserves to die, but he is not dead. How can you be sure that he did not join the Black Wind camp? Nangong-ju said with certainty, Tsun Takashi will not betray the Nangong clan. The general of the Liang kingdom smiled. Oh. Nangong-ju said sarcastically, he came from a poor family. When my father met him, he was begging on the street. It was my father who picked him up, took him in, and let him join the army. He is stubborn, and inflexible. But fortunately, he is loyal to the Nangong clan. He can be said to be the most loyal dog of the Nangong clan. Wherever the Nangong clan points, he will bite. Even if his body is broken, he will not hesitate. Gu Jiao almost rushed forward to give Nangong-ju flowers. Well said. Tonight's friendly army belongs to you. If it was in the past, Nangong-ju would not say such arrogant words in front of outsiders. But now, he was angered by the arrogant attitude of the general of the Liang kingdom. He needed to look down on others to regain his dignity and show that he was superior. Unfortunately, the speaker did not mean it, but the listener did. Outside the tent, Tsun Takashi's face turned completely green. Digression. Gulp gulp, we are all allies, let's have a drink. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more interesting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642-826/10577834. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 842. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more interesting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found on the internet are available here. On the way back, Tsun Takashi did not say a word. Wan Renchong and Zhao Dengfeng saw Tsun Takashi's expression and kept signaling Li Shen with their eyes. Li Shen could not say anything in front of Tsun Takashi, so he could only ignore his companion's eyes. The group arrived at the hill where the war horses were parked. The untethered Black Wind cavalry was standing there perfectly fine. On the other hand, Tsun Takashi's war horse's rope was broken. However, under Black Wind King's suppression, it did not dare to go anywhere. A wild beast came here, Gu Jiao said as he looked at the footprints on the ground. Being untethered had its benefits. The Black Wind cavalry could fight together. If they were tied up, they would only be bitten to death by the wild beasts. Are you hurt? Gu Jiao patted Black Wind King's neck and asked. Black Wind King raised his head and snorted. It seemed like he was fine. 11 Black Wind cavalry was not a joke. Even if it was a wolf, it would have been driven away. Tsun Takashi's horse was a little frightened, but Black Wind King had already calmed it down. In the past, everyone only saw Black Wind King's power as a ruler. However, this time, everyone felt another side of Black Wind King, a side that had never been seen in Han Ye's hands. The group leaped onto their horses. Gu Jiao sighed and said, Don't be so dejected. Maybe he doesn't really think that way. He's just saying it out of anger. This was the right way to persuade him. The more he persuaded, the angrier he got. Tsun Takashi snorted coldly. He whipped his horse and charged into the night. Zhao Dengfeng finally could not help but ask, What happened? Was he beaten up by someone? Li Shen did not speak much. He ignored Zhao Dengfeng. Mu Qingchen was not familiar with Zhao Dengfeng, so he did not speak either. Zhao Dengfeng then looked at the junior commander. The junior commander sighed exaggeratedly. Sigh, he was beaten up by scum. His heart is broken. Zhao Dengfeng. Everyone, Zhao Dengfeng and the rest chased after Tsun Takashi. What if he wanted to escape? Mu Qingchen and Gu Jiao brought up the rear. The two walked at a moderate pace. Mu Qingchen said, I can't guess who the general of the Liang kingdom is, but the one from the Nangong clan seems to be the fourth son, Nangong Ju. Gu Jiao said, yeah, I think it's him too. He said, my father brought Tsun Takeshi back. That father should be the head of the Nangong family. The head of the Nangong family had a total of 4 sons, and Nangong Cheng was the eldest. His martial arts were not proficient, so the Nangong family would not allow him to take the risk to come here in the middle of the night. The second son, Nangong Li, was dead, but the third son, Nangong Zhe, didn't sound like that. Right now, only his fourth son, Nangong Ju, still had full combat power. Mu Qingchen asked, should we kill him? Gu Jiao glanced at him. Are you used to killing people now? Mu Qingchen lowered his eyes and said, you have to get used to it. Gu Jiao was very satisfied. As expected of young Master Qingchen, he improved rapidly. Gu Jiao said, he won't come out tonight, so we can't kill him. Let's wait for the duel. After the group returned to the barracks in Ziyang City, Tsun Takeshi went straight to his camp for wounded soldiers. The medical officer felt a gust of wind blow past him, and he immediately woke up from his sleep. He shuddered and looked at Tsun Takeshi, who had almost smashed himself onto the bed, and then looked at the junior commander outside. He quickly walked out and asked, Commander, is he okay? Gu Jiao said, he's fine. Don't worry about him, and don't ask too much. Just use the medicine as usual. Yes, the medical officer replied. Everyone returned to their own tents, and the medical officer went to take care of the other patients. Tsun Takeshi lay alone on the bed with a thick mattress, and his body was cold. He came from a poor family. When my father met him, he was begging on the street. He's stubborn, self-opinionated, and inflexible. He's the most loyal dog that our Nangong family has raised. As long as Tsun Takeshi leads them to work with you from the inside, your plan to attack the city will be twice the result with half the effort. Just because you're useless and lost, you think that our Liang army is as useless as your Nangong family's remaining soldiers? If that General Tsun Takeshi comes to our Liang, we won't even let him be a chili arch. Tsun Takeshi clenched his fists bit by bit, and his body trembled violently. His wounds burst open, and blood seeped out from the bandages, dyeing his entire shirt red. The Liang army only discovered the abnormality of the military equipment the next morning. It was drizzling at the border, and a few soldiers from the supply camp went to wipe the rainwater off the chariots. As soon as they touched the chariots collapsed with a boom. The few of them were stunned. The huge commotion alerted the deputy general of the supply camp. The deputy general checked the rest of the chariots, and without exception, all of them collapsed. Not only that, but the ladders they used to climb up the city walls were also broken into pieces. This was a major accident in the barracks. The deputy general of the supply camp immediately reported to the few generals. When Chu Feiping came to the scene, he touched the smooth cut on the chariot with his fingertips, and his eyes turned cold, snow domain heavenly silk. The general next to him said, General, this, Chu Feiping said indifferently, looks like someone came here last night. The general immediately knelt down on one knee. I failed in my duty. Chu Feiping looked at the direction of Ziyang City. Nangong Ju is right, the Black Wind Cavalry of Great Yen is not easy to deal with. The plan to attack the city will have to be postponed. Tell the Nangong family that I agree to their conditions. After losing their military equipment, the Liang army spent a total of 8 days to transport new ladders and chariots from other cities. This was another huge amount of manpower and material resources, and it also slightly shook the morale of the army. But it didn't matter, the Great Yen was surrounded by wolves, and the Liang was not the only enemy. The other 5 kingdoms were also crazily nibbling on this fat piece of meat. Sooner or later, the Great Yen would fall completely. On the 18th of September, in the evening, the west wind was strong. General Song Kai of the Liang led 20,000 vanguard soldiers and launched the first wave of attack toward the west gate of Ziyang City. Last night, Chong Wei received an order from the Nangong family. As the Nangong family had taken root in Suyong City for a long time, naturally, they still had spies in the city. One of them disguised himself as a food delivery vendor and sneaked into the military camp, then came to the tent where Chong Wei was recuperating. He showed Chong Wei a token hidden in his sleeve, then said, "Clan Master has given an order. If the Liang army is going to attack the city later, you are to command your men to charge out and annihilate the Black Wind Battalion." Chong Wei responded calmly, "So Clan Master is asking me to help the enemy and commit treason?" The vendor said, "The Emperor of Great Yen is heartless, and this is a strategy to drive the tiger to devour the wolf. Of course, Clan Master will not commit treason. Once we take down the Black Wind Battalion, Clan Master will ask you to lead the army and drive the Liang army out of Great Yan's border." Chong Wei lowered his eyes and said in a low voice, "Is that so?" The vendor smiled and said, "Of course, Clan Master is wholeheartedly serving the people of Great Yen, and his sincerity can be witnessed by heaven and earth. Since Clan Master has entrusted General Chong with such an important task, it not only shows his trust in General Chong, but also his high regard for General Chong. General Chong, please don't disappoint Clan Master. After all, you are the most trusted retainer of Nangong Clan." Chong Wei looked at the vendor with a serious face. "Clan Master, is that how you see me? Don't you think that I'm just a lackey of Nangong Clan?" The vendor sighed. "Why would General Chong think so? Did you hear some rumors? Ah, General Chong, you have been brought back to the border by Clan Master for many years, but have you ever seen Clan Master do anything to betray the people? Yes, it's wrong to abandon the city and flee, but this is also for the sake of the big picture. Don't forget who saved your life back then. Without Clan Master, you can't be ungrateful." After the vendor left, Chong Wei went to the place where the prisoners of war were kept for the first time. They were stripped of their armors and weapons, but not a single one of them suffered any form of abuse. They ate whatever the Black Wind cavalry ate. Not a single meal was left out. The wounded soldiers were all treated in time, and the bodies of the dead soldiers were not damaged. They were all sewn up by a coroner, so that they could be buried with dignity. The iron plates were also kept with Teacher Hu. Chong Wei went to Teacher Hu and asked for the iron plates of the soldiers back. When everyone saw Chong Wei again, it was when the Liang Kingdom's army arrived at the city. Chong Wei stood on the city gate tower in the west wind, wearing a shining armor and holding a big bow in his hand. In front of the Liang army's camp, Song Kai slowly rode his horse to the front of the army. He stood on the empty battlefield and looked up at Chong Wei, who was on the city tower. He smiled and said in the Yen language that was not very authentic, "You must be General Chong Wei. It seems like we don't have to fight this battle anymore. The Nangong family has already taken back Suyong City." Before he could finish, Chong Wei drew his bow and shot an arrow through his shoulder. The huge force threw Song Kai off the horse's back. Song Kai screamed and fell heavily to the ground. He clutched his injured arm and looked at Tsun Tokushi in disbelief. "You with the surname Chong. Are you crazy?" Chong Wei waved his hand and hundreds of archers appeared on the city gate tower. They drew their bows and aimed at the Liang Kingdom's army. These people were not the Black Wind cavalry of Shangdu. They were the Nangong clan's army. Chong Wei looked at Song Kai coldly and said, "Didn't you say that our Suyong City's army is useless? How does it feel to be shot by a useless person like me?" "When did I say that?" Song Kai's pupils shrank. Yes, he did say that. In front of Nangong Ju, he mocked the Nangong clan's army that lost to the Black Wind cavalry as a bunch of useless people. How did Chong Wei know? Did Nangong Ju tell him? No, that's impossible. Nangong Ju would not do that. Could it be? Song Kai's eyes turned cold. You were the one who destroyed the military equipment that night. Chong Wei did not explain that he was not the one who did it. There was no point in talking nonsense with such a person. Chong Wei sneered. "My strength is indeed not good, but it's more than enough to deal with you, you bastards from Liang Kingdom. Now, open your eyes wide and watch how we, this bunch of useless people, chase you out of Liang Kingdom's borders." Song Kai endured the pain coming from his arm as an ominous premonition surged in his heart. What is this guy trying to do? Tsun Takashi looked down at the Liang Kingdom's army and said, "Archers, fire." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more interesting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that you can't find online are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642/8264286/1057591114. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 843. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more fully. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. Arrows that blotted out the sky pierced through the sky, emitting soul-shaking whistles. With an unstoppable momentum, they interweaved into a dense rain of arrows in the sky. After the first row of archers finished shooting, they quickly retreated and reloaded. The archers in the back row stepped forward from the gap and mercilessly shot the arrows in their hands. A total of 3 rows of archers cooperated well. Not only did they have no gaps in their attacks, but they also allowed their arm strength to recover fully. The rain of arrows fell into the frontmost camp of the Liang army. The Liang army hurriedly raised their shields to defend. However, the shields could only block one side. They could block the front but not the front. The arrows came from different angles, but there would always be one that could enter the gap and hit the body of the Liang army. After the first round of arrows was shot, dozens of people from the Liang army fell. Tsun Takashi continued to attack. The archers pulled their bows until sparks flew. The terrifying sound of the arrows piercing through the air resounded throughout the city tower. For a moment, the Liang army screamed and wailed. After 3 rounds of attack, the number of people in the Liang army who were shot had reached 100. For the Liang army that had 20,000 vanguard troops, the sacrifice of 100 people might not be a big deal. However, if it happened in a flash, it would be a very serious situation. Especially when the enemy did not lose a single soldier. They only wasted some arrows. Song Kai felt the pressure from the Tsuyong army. What was going on? Wasn't Tsun Takashi the confidant of the Nangong family? Why did he start a war with the Liang army? Could it be that the Nangong family was pretending to ask for peace that night, but in fact, it was to attract their attention so that Tsun Takashi could destroy the military equipment? Had the Nangong family been toying with the Liang army from the beginning? Song Kai narrowed his cold eyes. No matter what, since Tsun Takashi dared to start a war with the Liang army, then he could not blame them for turning hostile. He broke the arrow on his shoulder and shouted. He used his internal energy to send out his voice clearly. Everyone, do not panic. Listen to my orders. Vanguard left camp. Get into formation. Flying crane formation. The flying crane formation was a formation created by the divine general of the Liang kingdom, Chu Feipeng. It used the shield as the sky to form a defensive formation. Because it looked like a flying crane from above, it got its name. A single shield could only cover a limited area, but when all the shields were put together, they formed an impenetrable iron roof. The front was also blocked by the shields. There was nowhere for the arrow to hit. However, if they thought that this was all Tsun Takashi had up his sleeves, they would be too naive. Catapults. Tsun Takashi ordered. The archers retreated to the side in a well-trained manner, and the catapults were quickly pushed to the edge of the city tower by the soldiers. They loaded the stones, pressed them down, and fired. Their movements were neat and orderly. Some of the generals of the Black Wind Battalion were also present. Chung Fugue's mouth was wide open, and he couldn't close it for a long time. These soldiers. Not bad. Back then, when the Black Wind Cavalry killed them all, he thought that these rebels were useless. Gu Jiao said, "It's just a matter of specialization. They might not be a match for us in close combat, but when it comes to defending the city, they are kings." Chuyang City was impregnable. Not only were the city walls and city gates sturdy, but the defensive tactics were also impenetrable. If Zhao Kingdom had such a force in Yuelu City, it would not have been so difficult to defend the city. Gu Jiao was relieved when he saw this. Although the Liang Kingdom's army had a large number of soldiers, as long as the city gates were not opened and the city tower did not collapse, they would not be able to break through Tsun Takashi's defense. 2 hours later, the Liang Kingdom's army had lost nearly 1,000 soldiers. The general's order came from the rear. Song Kai gritted his teeth unwillingly and retreated. In the first wave of attack, they did not even get close to the city walls. Although they used the catapults a few times, Tsun Takashi's attack was too fierce. They could not get close to the catapults, and they wasted more than 10 heavy stones. The Liang Kingdom's army rested for 4 hours, and they launched the second wave of attack at night. This time, they came prepared. They used extremely sturdy shields to push the chariots dozens of feet forward. Their catapults finally worked and caused some damage to the soldiers on the city tower. Tsun Takashi used the black gunpowder. The Yen Kingdom did not have a large amount of saltpeter mines, so the raw materials for the black gunpowder were very limited. It was difficult to use it for military purposes. Tsun Takashi used all his trump cards. The explosive power was not enough, so he used knockout drugs to make up for it. The Liang Kingdom's army was pushed back again. Song Kai's face was covered in dirt. He was so angry that he was about to explode. He dragged his injured arm and rode on his horse. He pulled out his sword and pointed at the city tower. "Chong, come down and fight me if you have the guts. What kind of man are you if you keep hiding on the city tower?" Tsun Takashi only replied with 2 words. "Release the arrows." Song Kai was only able to avoid being turned into a hedgehog by sacrificing himself to protect him. In the middle of the night, Song Kai did not give up and launched a sneak attack. However, he was defeated by Tsun Takashi, who had already seen through everything. The first day, a perfect defense. The soldiers were quite happy. The confidence that was destroyed by the Black Wind Cavalry seemed to have recovered. Everyone was in high spirits. They were the Nangong family's soldiers after all. The reason why they obeyed Tsun Takashi was because the Nangong family had always thought highly of them. Now that the Nangong family was not in the city, Tsun Takashi had become the backbone. Naturally, they would listen to whatever he said. Tsun Takashi came down from the city tower and saw Gu Jiao by the roadside. Gu Jiao crossed her arms and leaned her right shoulder lazily on the city wall. "Well done, old Chong." Tsun Takashi glanced at her coldly and said, "I'm not that close to you. Also, I'm doing this for the people in the city. I'm not working with you." Gu Jiao shrugged. "It doesn't matter. As long as you don't work with the Liang Kingdom." She raised her hand and yawned. "It's getting late. I'm going to rest. I'll leave the defense of the city to General Chong." Tsun Takashi frowned as he watched her leave. In the end, he did not stop her and went to the temporary casualty camp to visit the soldiers who were injured today. When he went in, the Nangong family's medical officer told him that a few soldiers who were seriously injured were saved by the Black Wind Cavalry's junior commander. He was busy in the casualty camp for as long as the battle on the city tower ended. He only left when it was over. "Got it," Tsun Takashi said. In the next 3 days, the Liang Kingdom's army launched more than 10 attacks at the western city gate. Tsun Takashi blocked all of them with great skill. There were provisions that Gu Jiao stole from Nangong Zhe in the city. It would not be a problem for them to fight for another 10 days to half a month. Moreover, they did not have to hold on for that long. The 120,000 soldiers from the imperial court would arrive in 5 days at the earliest and 7 days at the latest. The situation in Chuyang City was good. However, just as everyone was waiting for victory with joy, an accident happened. The northern city gate collapsed. It was not attacked by the Liang Kingdom's army. It was destroyed by a Nangong family's confidant who was hiding in the city. He used gunpowder to blow up the door from the inside. The confidant was a soldier in the army. He was guarding the northern city gate. It was his turn to be on duty that night. No one expected him to do such a thing. The moment the northern city gate collapsed, everyone rushed forward to capture him. However, he had already ignited the signal of fireworks. What's that? In the military camp, Cheng Fuguei looked at the fireworks in the night sky. It's so beautiful. Li Jin frowned and said, "It's coming from the north of the city." Tong Zhong was puzzled. Did something happen at the northern city gate? Li Jin said, "I don't know what this signal means. Quickly send someone to check it out." They did not know what it meant. However, Tsun Takashi knew very well that this was a signal that the city gate had been breached. The Liang Kingdom's army was outside the western city. Who breached the northern city gate? Could it be? There was a spy. Tsun Takashi's heart skipped a beat. Gu Jiao was bandaging the wounds of the injured soldiers in the barracks. When she heard the commotion outside, she quickly went up the city gate tower and asked Tsun Takashi, "What happened?" Tsun Takashi said with a serious expression, "The northern city gate has been breached." Gu Jiao was puzzled. Breached? No army is heading to the northern city gate. Tsun Takashi judged based on his past experience. Yes, no. So, the situation might be more serious. As soon as he finished speaking, a soldier at the side pointed at the Liang Kingdom's army camp and shouted, "They've retreated." Gu Jiao looked and her eyes turned cold. They're not retreating. They're heading to the northern city gate. The Liang Kingdom's army was about to attack the northern city gate. Gu Jiao and Tsun Takashi rushed downstairs. Gu Jiao whistled and the Black Wind King galloped over. Gu Jiao took a big step forward and nimbly mounted the horse. Tsun Takashi called for a deputy general and put him in charge of the defense of the western city gate. He rode his horse and chased after Gu Jiao to the northern city gate. When the two of them were halfway there, they met the soldier who came to report. The soldier cupped his hands and said, "General Chong, bad news. The northern city gate has fallen." Tsun Takashi said, "Speak clearly." The soldier said, "That bastard Zhang Damon destroyed the door mortar while he was on duty." The door mortar was equivalent to the door binder of the modern world. Without it, the door could not be fixed. The door mortar of Chuyang City was made of stone and was integrated with the entire city gate. Once it was destroyed, it was impossible to repair it. They could only build a new one. However, that was not something that could be done in a day or two. Tsun Takashi realized the seriousness of the situation. They could deal with the Liang Kingdom's army because they had the advantage of the city wall. If the Liang Kingdom's army took the opportunity to enter the city, the consequences would be unimaginable. The soldiers at the other three city gates could not be withdrawn because their enemies were not only the Liang Kingdom's army but also the Han family and Jin Kingdom. Therefore, there were less than 20,000 soldiers who could go to the western city gate to fight. Gu Jiao said calmly, "General Chong, go back and guard the western city gate. Leave the northern city gate to the Black Wind Cavalry." Tsun Takashi opened his mouth. But Gu Jiao held the reins tightly and looked at the northern city. From now on, the Black Wind Cavalry's flesh and blood will be the gate of the northern city. Digression. She rubbed her small hands and wanted to ask for a wave of monthly votes for the Black Wind Cavalry. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964289642826/1057575504. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website M. ZHHBQG. Come. Chapter 844. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. Gu Jiao and Black Wind King returned to the barracks. In fact, the Black Wind Cavalry had already heard the news that the North Gate had been destroyed. The entire army was already prepared and ready to go. The soldiers and their horses were all equipped with armor, and each one of them held a spear or a sword in their hand. They stood on the west wind's biting cold training ground. Gu Jiao didn't ask who was the leader. Perhaps she didn't need to ask. They didn't fight for the military uniform. Instead, they had to fight for honor, for their country, and for the common people after donning the military uniform. As long as they were still alive, no one could step on the rivers of the great Yan dynasty. To be honest, when Mu Qingchen saw this scene, he was also very shocked. He had been with the army for more than a month. He always thought that he knew enough about the soldiers of the great Yan dynasty. But in the end, his knowledge was still too superficial. What kind of feelings could be sacrificed to this extent? Gu Jiao sat on the back of the Black Wind King's horse. Looking at the majestic Black Wind Cavalry, she said with a solemn expression, "Very good. Vanguard Battalion, Assault Battalion, follow me to battle. Garrison Battalion, get ready to fight." Mu Qingchen's heart skipped a beat. Even the Garrison Battalion was going to fight? Zhou Ran and Zhang Shiyong heard this and their hearts surged. They finally had a chance to go to the battlefield. But in the next second, their arms that were waving in the air froze. They were not afraid of death. But if even they were going to fight, it meant that the situation had deteriorated to an inestimable extent. This battle might be the battle of the Black Wind Cavalry's survival. Gu Jiao looked at the reserve battalion. "I hope you won't be needed." If they were needed, then the Vanguard Battalion and Assault Battalion would all be killed. In the dream of war, the Liang Kingdom and the Black Wind Cavalry did fight a fierce battle. The Black Wind Cavalry, which was depleted by the Civil War, had less than 20,000 soldiers left. They were surrounded by the Liang Kingdom's army in the mountains of Mount Mang. They were completely wiped out. Gu Jiao held the reins tightly and urged the horse to walk on the deserted street. This time, could she change the fate of the Black Wind Cavalry? Mu Qingchen urged his horse to keep up with her. Every city gate in Xuyang City has 3 gates, but one of them is broken. Gu Jiao said, "No, all 3 channels are broken." The innermost gate had its mortar blown off. There was another gate and a secret door. The rebels had also destroyed the corresponding slots. Are all 3 gates broken? No wonder they couldn't hold on. Mu Qingchen frowned. "Snow Domain Heavenly Silkworm Silk." Gu Jiao said plainly, "No, Chu Feiping has gloves that can deal with the Snow Domain's Heavenly Silkworm Silk." Mu Qingchen took a deep look at her. "You seem to know a lot about the Liang Kingdom." "Sort of." Gu Jiao did not explain. Her ears twitched as she looked in the direction of the North City Gate. "We have to speed up. They're almost here." She tightened her grip on the horse's belly, and Black Wind King sensed her command. It leaped forward and galloped forward. Mu Qingchen was about to follow when a courageous citizen opened the door and walked out. "Young Master Mu, are we going to war?" Mu Qingchen held the reins tightly. In order not to block the army behind, he hurriedly urged his horse to move to the side. He said to the citizen who had heard his preaching before, "Yes, the Liang Kingdom's army is invading. The North City Gate has been destroyed by the remnants of the Nangong family. Now, Lord Shao is leading the Black Wind Cavalry to the North City Gate to meet the enemy." As he spoke, he looked at the citizens who stuck their heads out to look at him. He pursed his lips and said, "Everyone go back quickly. Don't come out if there's nothing important." The citizens said worriedly, "Then Xuyang City." Mu Qingchen looked at the young man who was leading the army and said seriously, "You have to believe in Lord Shao." He will definitely protect Tsuyong City. Sigh, he's still a child. An old man sighed while leaning on his walking stick. Everyone was silent. Yes. The young commander of the Black Wind Battalion was said to be a teenager. At such a young age, he was already going to fight the enemy. It was laughable that they had once suspected him of being a rebel. But which rebel in the world would use his own flesh and blood to protect the lives of the citizens in the face of life and death? When the tens of thousands of Liang Kingdom's army arrived at the North City Gate, the Black Wind Cavalry had already lined up neatly to welcome them. The two sides were separated by 10 feet, which happened to be within the effective shooting range of the archers. The shields and archers of both sides were already in position. The battle was about to begin. Gu Jiao took the lead and stood at the front of the Black Wind Cavalry. She was wearing her battle suit and armor, while the Black Wind King was also wearing a black helmet and armor. One person and one horse stood under the vast sky. Standing in front of the majestic army, they were as small as a grain of sand in the vast ocean. However, it was this 16-year-old warhorse and the 16-year-old youth who led the Black Wind Cavalry fearlessly in front of the Liang Kingdom's army. Kid, you're Xiao Lu Lang, the commander of the Black Wind Cavalry? I heard you're very powerful. In front of the camp of the state of Liang, a burly general of the state of Liang, holding a mace, urged his horse forward a few steps. He looked at Gu Jiao with his nose in the air. Do you dare to fight with me? A one-on-one? This was also a way for the two armies to start a war. Mu Qingchen urged his horse to Gu Jiao's side. He's called Pan Long. He's a fierce general under Chu Feipeng. I once followed my grandfather to the Liang Kingdom and saw him in the main hall. This person has a violent temperament and is extremely cruel. The prisoners of war who fall into his hands usually don't have a good ending. This was a euphemism. Pan Long was famous for torturing prisoners of war in the army. After the war, it was not uncommon for him to burn, kill, rob, and humiliate innocent women. His subordinates also did the same. However, this person was indeed brave, so he was somewhat valued. Li Jin cupped his fist and said, "Commander, let me go and meet him." Gu Jiao looked in Pan Long's direction. Okay. Li Jin's weapon was a spear. He held a spear in one hand and a shield in the other. He urged his horse to rush towards Pan Long. Pan Long saw this and frowned in dissatisfaction. He raised the mace in his hand. I want to beat that brat. Not some random shrimp soldier or crab general. Get out of my way. He also urged his horse to rush towards Li Jin. The moment he finished speaking, he raised the spiked mace in his hand and fiercely swung it towards Li Jin's head. Li Jin didn't have time or something else. He didn't have a shield and directly stabbed his spear towards Pan Long's heart. The two horses brushed past each other. The entire battlefield was silent. Only the whistling of the wind and the whistling of the horses' hooves could be heard. Li Jin's horse circled around and stopped just in time. The Liang Kingdom's army looked at Pan Long's back. The next second, Pan Long's body tilted and his eyes stared blankly as he fell into a pool of blood. Li Jin looked in the direction of the Liang Kingdom's army and said arrogantly, "Ah, so you Liang Kingdom's generals can't even beat our Black Wind Cavalry." The Black Wind Cavalry burst into loud cheers. The Liang Kingdom's army's expression became very ugly. They originally wanted to show their strength to the Black Wind Cavalry, but who would have thought that they would be defeated in seconds? Is there anyone else who wants to duel? Li Jin asked coldly. Young man, don't be too arrogant. An old general in his 50s rushed towards Li Jin with a treasured sword in his hand. His strength was above Pan Long's. When the blade slashed over, Li Jin clearly felt a strong pressure. Li Jin frowned and raised the shield in his hand. With a clang, the blade heavily hit the shield. Half of Li Jin's arm was numb. Mu Qingchen continued to introduce to Gu Jiao. Liang Kingdom's old General Cheng participated in the crusade against the Yan Kingdom and fought against the Shenyuan family. He is one of the few generals who can last more than 100 moves against Shenyuan Li. Li Jin's chances of winning against him are not high. Li Jin was not even 30 this year and was a very young general. There was at least 20 years of experience between him and old General Cheng. This was actually a bit of a bully. But Li Jin was also far more tenacious than people imagined. Old General Cheng's sword slashed at his shield again and again. His arm was already green, but he still did not have the slightest intention of yielding. Finally, he found an opportunity. He suddenly stabbed towards old General Cheng's thigh. In the Liang Kingdom's camp, a cold light flashed. Gu Jiao's eyes turned cold. She suddenly picked up the longbow on the horse's back, drew an arrow, and shot it at the cold light. Who is it? Old General Cheng blocked Li Jin's attack with his sword and turned his head to look. Beside the two of them, an arrow nailed a dagger to the ground. The arrow was shot by the Black Wind Cavalry. As for the dagger, there was no need to talk about it. Old General Cheng's face was green as he asked his own camp, who did it? Gu Jiao held the bow and said indifferently, I thought it would be a fair duel. Unexpectedly, Yu Liang Kingdom's people are so shameless. Since that is the case, there is no need for a duel. Li Jin returned to the camp. Yes. Li Jin kept his spear and rode the Black Wind Cavalry back to his camp. So close. Just now Li Jin seemed to have caught the Liang Kingdom's old general's flaw. In fact, the Liang Kingdom's old general had purposely lured him into the trap. It was really lucky that the Liang Kingdom side did not see through it and thought that their old general was going to lose, so they took the opportunity to sneak attack Li Jin. And she just happened to use this as an excuse to end the duel between the two. The general who had sneak attacked just now walked out. It was Song Kai. He snorted and said, Uncle Cheng, why waste your time talking with them? Let's fight. Since things had come to this, there was indeed no face to continue fighting one-on-one. Old General Cheng gave the order to charge. Gu Jiao raised her voice, Black Wind Cavalry, fight with all your might. The archers from both sides launched the first wave of attack. Under the protection of the archers, the first group of cavalry began to charge and break through the enemy lines. The Liang Kingdom's army had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers. They were fighting a war of attrition. Even if they had to exhaust the Black Wind Cavalry, they had to exhaust them to death. Moreover, the strength of their cavalry was not weak. There were many Imperial Death Warriors mixed in. These Death Warriors did not fight with the ordinary Black Wind Cavalry. They specialized in harvesting the heads of the generals. In the blink of an eye, 3 of the Black Wind Cavalry's deputy generals fell. One of the Death Warriors stared at Chang Fugui and kicked him off his horse. Just at this moment, a war horse did not have time to stop in time. Chang Fugui's eyebrows twitched and he hurriedly rolled to avoid it. On the other side, Li Jin was also targeted by 2 Death Warriors. The 2 of them attacked from both sides and Li Jin's thigh was quickly injured. The Death Warrior slashed his sword towards Li Jin's head. Gu Jiao used her spear to deflect his sword. At the same time, the Black Wind King raised his horse's hoof and fiercely stomped on the Death Warrior's chest. The Death Warrior was caught off guard and was sent flying. He fell onto the hooves of another Black Wind Cavalry. He raised his sword to chop off the hooves of the horse. Gu Jiao shot out her red tasseled spear and mercilessly pierced through his heart. Gu Jiao urged her horse to pull out her red tasseled spear. She turned around and shot out another spear. It directly pierced through the head of another Death Warrior. His brain splattered all over Cheng Fugui's face. Cheng Fugui's entire person was stunned. The Death Warriors of the Liang Kingdom all felt an incomparably terrifying aura. They who never knew what fear was suddenly felt a chill run down their spine. They subconsciously looked in the direction of the dangerous aura and saw a young man dressed in red clothes and profound armor staring at them calmly. It was this calmness that made people feel an inexplicable sense of danger. It was as if endless killing was as normal as breathing in the eyes of this youth. From the moment they were stared at by this youth, they were no longer the Death Warriors of the Liang Kingdom. They were just the prey chosen by the killing god. The Death Warriors fell one by one. The youth's eyes remained calm. In the camp of the Liang Kingdom's army, several generals who were witnessing this scene all frowned. A general in his early 30s who was holding a silver spear muttered, "What is going on? That kid. How is he so powerful? Is he really only 19 years old?" Beside him, a young swordsman crossed his arms and said, "It's fake. He is not even 19 years old. According to people who have seen him, he is at most 16 or 17 years old." The Silver Spear General said, "Then how is he able to kill without blinking?" This was truly killing without blinking. Even his emotions did not fluctuate at all. 20 death warriors, he killed half of them in an instant. This youth's strength was too terrifying. The Silver Spear General was talking when his eyes suddenly widened. He is gone. Is he dead? The young swordsman narrowed his eyes slightly. Dead? The Silver Spear General's pupils shrank. Not good. He is coming this way. Gu Jiao said, "Left wing, cover him." Yes. Tong Zhong immediately adjusted the battle formation and covered Gu Jiao to open a bloody path. Mu Qingchen covered Gu Jiao's right wing. When the generals of the Liang Kingdom noticed something strange, Gu Jiao had already arrived in front of their formation. "Stop him!" the Silver Spear General yelled. A row of soldiers with long swords swarmed toward Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao pulled the reins tightly. "Boss!" Black Wind King mustered all his strength and leaped over everyone's heads. Everyone was stunned. They had never seen such a strong and fast horse. It was terrifying. Black Wind King galloped forward and knocked away all the soldiers in his way without fear of death. The young swordsman turned around and took a closer look. Not good. He is heading toward father. Gu Jiao rode on the back of the horse, as if she had merged with Black Wind King's strength. She was invincible in the camp of the Liang Kingdom's army. In the dream about her ending, Jing Kong was killed by Chu Feiping. Chu Feiping killed the last of the Yen Kingdom's Black Wind Cavalry. If she killed Chu Feiping, the tragedy of Jing Kong and the Black Wind Cavalry would not happen again, right? Today's battle would be over, right? Stop him. Don't let him get close to the general. The Liang Kingdom's army was getting denser and denser. Black Wind King's gallop became more and more difficult. Hang in there, boss. She was almost there. She saw the man in the carriage. She held onto the saddle with one hand and used the momentum to fly up, stabbing the carriage with her spear. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that you can't find on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1057374118. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 845. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. The spear pierced into the carriage and into the man's sleeve. Was he hurt or not? Gu Jiao frowned. In the next second, a figure quickly approached Gu Jiao's back. The speed was unbelievably fast. Gu Jiao pulled out the red tasseled spear and jumped forward. Black Wind King ran forward to catch Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao rode on horseback and looked at the cold gleaming tip of her spear. There was no blood. She actually missed? This Chu Feiping really lived up to his name. No wonder he could kill Jing Kong, who was already a young immortal general. How dare you sneak attack my foster father? The one who spoke was the young swordsman who almost hurt Gu Jiao. His name was Zhao En, and he was Chu Feiping's foster son. He had just turned 20 this year. He rode on his horse and looked at Gu Jiao and Black Wind King indifferently. He said arrogantly, "I don't want your spear. I only practice swordsmanship. However, I do like your horse. After I kill you, your horse will be mine. Black Wind King's murderous aura was overflowing. Zhao En smiled faintly. I like your temper. Gu Jiao said, it's no use even if you like it. It's not yours. Zhao En didn't want to fight with Gu Jiao. He flew up and raised his sword to stab at Gu Jiao. It'll be mine if I steal it. Kid. Take this. Gu Jiao's spear swept out, changing from defense to offense, aiming straight for his waist. Zhao En's eyes trembled. He quickly withdrew his killing move and dodged Gu Jiao's attack. Then, he raised his sword and chopped at Gu Jiao's head. He wanted to take the Black Wind King for himself, so naturally, he didn't want to hurt the Black Wind King. Therefore, he focused all his attacks on Gu Jiao's upper body. Gu Jiao vaguely felt that his moves were somewhat familiar, as if she had seen them somewhere before. It couldn't be in that dream. No, in the dream, Zhao En didn't even have time to make a move. The two of them exchanged a few blows. Zhao En's martial arts skills were higher than expected, but it wasn't too troublesome. Gu Jiao leaped up from the horse's back and did a somersault in the air. Then, with the red tasseled spear in hand, she viciously hacked down at Zhao En. Zhao En's sword was split in half on the spot. Zhao En stared at the broken sword in his hand in disbelief. How is this possible? He was the youngest swordsman in the Liang Kingdom. Gu Jiao did not care whether he was a swordsman or a slut. She once again thrust a spear towards Zhao En in a domineering manner. Someone in the carriage shot out a dart and it hit the tip of Gu Jiao's spear. The strong internal energy shook off the tip of the spear, but the internal energy did not stop there. Instead, it vibrated along the body of the red-tasseled spear, causing Gu Jiao's arms to feel slightly numb. Her upper body was almost unable to exert any strength. However, if she thought that she could let Zhao En go just like that, then she was too naive. Gu Jiao looked at the broken sword on the ground. She stepped on it and the sword was flipped over. Gu Jiao used the back of her foot to kick the sword fiercely. The blade of the sword flew towards Zhao En's back. With a blood-curdling scream, Zhao En was stabbed by the sword, and his body fell forward in front of the carriage. He spat out blood and struggled to reach out to the carriage. Godfather. A faint male voice came from the carriage. Are you still not going to make a move? If you continue to watch the battle, the alliance will fall apart. Gu Jiao held the red-tasseled spear in her hand tightly. Who was Chu Feiping talking to? Just as this thought flashed through her mind, 3 figures flew out from the tent at the back. This aura, this movement skill, An Hun. No, An Hun had already been killed by Long Yi. Moreover, An Hun could not have become 3 people. Then there was only one answer. These 3 were from the same sect as An Hun and Long Yi. Gu Jiao finally understood why Zhao En's swordsmanship looked so familiar. In fact, it was not a swordsmanship, but a movement skill used in battle. It was almost the same as An Hun's. However, Zhao En was not as strong as An Hun. These 3 were different. Once they appeared, they gave Gu Jiao a deep sense of oppression. When she was in Zhao country, Gu Jiao judged experts as serious. Now, it was An Hun. These 3 swordsmen were all close to An Hun's strength. Although they were not stronger, if the 3 of them worked together, they would be stronger than An Hun. The situation was a little troublesome. On the other side, the Black Wind Cavalry was also fighting with all their strength. The war drums were beating, and the sounds of killing shook the sky. The guards on the city tower watched as the Black Wind Cavalry bathed in blood for the people of Chuyang City, but they could not do anything. These dangers should have been borne by them, but now, the Black Wind Cavalry was shouldering all of them. At first, a considerable number of them were watching the battle with the mentality of taking revenge for the Black Wind Cavalry's sacrifice. However, as the battle continued, everyone was moved. Only when they had seen death did they know how lucky they were. The Black Wind Cavalry fought with them and killed their companions. However, at the same time, the Black Wind Cavalry replaced them to fight. Blood flowed like a river from them to the Black Wind Cavalry. Another Black Wind Cavalry fell under the siege of the Liang country's army. A guard stepped forward and punched the city wall. Damn it! He turned his head and looked at the general beside him. "General G, let's go down and fight." Another guard gritted his teeth and said, "Yes, General G. There are too many soldiers in the Liang country's army. If this continues, the Black Wind Cavalry will not be able to hold on." General G clenched his fist and said sternly, "Everyone stay here and wait for orders." All the guards said in unison, "General." General G said with a complicated expression, "This is a military order." Did he not want to fight? Did he not want to drive the Liang country out of the Great Yen? He wanted to do that even in his dreams. However, they could not mess up the plan. They had to preserve their strength. Once their defense was reduced to a certain extent, the Han family and the Jin country's army would immediately attack Ziyang City. They were not afraid of death. They could not die. They could not be impulsive and let the Black Wind Cavalry sacrifice themselves in vain. Cheng Fugui's eyes were red from killing. His body was already covered with cuts and bruises, but he forced himself not to fall. The attack was divided into 4 groups: left, right, middle, and rear. The first 3 groups were responsible for killing. Once a large number of Black Wind Cavalry fell, the rear group would immediately replace them. On the long street in the city, the soldiers of the garrison camp moved forward step by step. This meant that more and more of their comrades on the front line had lost their ability to fight. They were eager to fight, but they did not want to be the ones to die in such a situation. Everyone's eyes turned red when they saw their companions being carried back by the medical officers in one piece and covered in blood. The medical officers hurriedly carried the injured soldiers back to the nearby tents. The leading medical officer said, "Also, call a few more people. You two don't have to go." There were 2 unwritten rules in the 6 states. When 2 armies fought, 1 was not to kill the envoys, and 2 was not to kill the medical officers. Even so, being accidentally injured was still a common thing. The 2 medical officers who had slightly cut their arms said in unison, "We are fine." The 2 of them indeed only had superficial wounds. Moreover, they did not have enough manpower, so the chief medical officer had to allow them to continue to the battlefield. Gu Jiao was surrounded by 3 swordsmen. "Don't touch that horse." The man in the carriage said lightly, "Don't worry, we will only kill him." The middle-aged man with a white face and no beard held a long sword. He looked at Gu Jiao and said, "Kid, to let you know why you are going to die, I am Zheng Shan. These 2 are twins. One is called Li Qi, and the other is Li Quan." They were actually speaking the language of the Yen Kingdom, but there were some accents from other countries. Gu Jiao looked at the 3 without fear. "I am not interested in your names. Tell me where you are from." The middle-aged man took in Gu Jiao's reaction and suddenly felt some admiration. "Kid, you have guts. If you want to be my disciple, I can make the decision to spare your life today. However, you will not be able to return to the Black Wind Cavalry." Gu Jiao said lightly, "How about this? Kneel down and call me grandfather, and I will consider not taking your life." The middle-aged man's face darkened. "You are about to die and you still dare to talk nonsense. Li Qi, Li Quan, no need to talk nonsense with him. Kill him." The twins held their swords and slashed at Gu Jiao. The twins had a better tacit understanding than ordinary people. In addition, their movement techniques were extremely fast, and every move was fatal. For a moment, it was difficult for Gu Jiao to use the Shenyuan family's spear techniques. The Black Wind King wanted to fight alongside Gu Jiao, but the middle-aged man stopped him. The Black Wind King did not say anything and charged at him. The man in the carriage slowly took a sip of tea. "Remember, don't hurt it." "How troublesome." The middle-aged man impatiently retracted his killing move and changed to dodging. The Black Wind King was more difficult to deal with than he thought. He could tell that the horse was an old one, but he did not understand how it could still release such explosive power and combat power. After dodging a few times, he got tired of dodging and called a group of soldiers. The soldiers formed a shield formation and trapped the Black Wind King in the middle. The Black Wind King's head was bleeding from the hard shields. Gu Jiao used the red tasseled spear to block the twin swords and said to the Black Wind King, Boss, don't move." The Black Wind King seemed to sense something and suddenly stopped moving. He stared at Gu Jiao without blinking. The middle-aged swordsman also joined the battle. Gu Jiao, who had only recovered half of her strength, was not a match for the three of them. Then, there was only one way. She did not completely lose her mind after losing control last time. Perhaps it was because she dealt with it quickly enough, or perhaps it was because the blood energy was not dense enough. Now, on the battlefield, the blood energy almost filled the air. Every pore of her body could feel the temptation of the blood energy. Perhaps, this would be an irreversible loss of control that would be more serious than any other time in the past. She would fight to the last drop of her strength. There was no way out. The Black Wind Cavalry fell one by one. The sacrifices were too great. She wanted to kill them all. She wanted to kill Chu Feiping and end this battle. The middle-aged man frowned at Gu Jiao. "What is this kid trying to do? Is he dying?" Li Qi of the twins asked. Li Quan sneered, "I'll go kill him." "Not good. Get out of the way," the middle-aged man shouted as he hurriedly retreated more than 10 steps. Unfortunately, his warning was a step too late. The youth threw something away and the aura around him suddenly increased. Li Quan's sword slashed at the youth's shoulder. The youth did not dodge and instead caught Li Quan's sword with his bare hands. The youth's eyes suddenly emitted a chilling murderous aura. The youth's fingers snapped and broke Li Quan's sword. Li Quan's expression changed. He wanted to pull out his sword and escape, but the youth's spear pierced through his heart. This murderous aura. The middle-aged man's expression became serious. "Little brother." Li Qi saw that his little brother had died under Gu Jiao's spear. His heart was filled with anger as he charged towards Gu Jiao. A complicated look flashed past the middle-aged man's eyes. He looked deeply at Gu Jiao and brandished his sword. Coordinating with Li Qi's attack, they attacked Gu Jiao from the front and back. Gu Jiao had no way to escape. Although one of the twins was missing, the combined strength of the two was still higher than in Hun. Gu Jiao had only lost control at 50% of her power. It was still quite difficult for her to deal with the two of them. After a few rounds, the three of them had suffered serious injuries. The other twin was the most seriously injured and had lost his ability to fight. The middle-aged man looked at his fallen twin and was even more puzzled. Even an Hun could not injure them to this extent. Actually, Gu Jiao's situation was not optimistic. She was exhausted. She had killed so many death warriors and then fought with Zhao En. After that, it was the three of them. The middle-aged man held his bleeding chest and gritted his teeth as he looked at the carriage. "Chu Feiping. If this goes on, we will all die." In the carriage, Chu Feiping sighed lightly. The three experts of the sword hut cannot deal with a 16 or 17-year-old kid. The strength of the sword hut is only a... The middle-aged man clenched his fists in humiliation. "Chu Feiping." Chu Feiping's wide sleeves moved and he flashed out of the carriage. His figure was unbelievably fast. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao stabbed with her spear. She had clearly aimed. But... did she miss again? Chu Feiping's strength was too terrifying. Chu Feiping looked coldly at the youth who was filled with killing intent. So what if he was a young god of death? He, Chu Feiping, was born to kill gods. Chu Feiping stretched out his hand and grabbed Gu Jiao's neck. He only needed to twist gently and his head would fall to the ground. Swoosh! An arrow pierced through the air like lightning. It made a whistling sound and hit Chu Feiping's wrist. He let go of his hand and flicked his sleeve to block the arrow. He did not expect the arrow to cut through his long sleeve. His eyes turned cold. Almost at the same time, a black-clothed youth descended from the sky. Taking advantage of his unpreparedness, he carried Gu Jiao away. Chu Feiping felt a strong killing intent coming from behind him. He coldly turned around and saw a large war chariot that had unknowingly arrived at the back of the army. On the war chariot, there was a muscular man dressed in silver armor. He was carrying a long blade, and one of his feet was casually stepping on the war chariot's side. It was just a light step and did not make any sound, but it made people's hearts tremble. Chu Feipeng frowned. The silver-armored man raised the long blade in his hand and arrogantly pointed it at Chu Feipeng. Chu Feipeng, touching my son. Son, have you asked my blade? Chu Feipeng suspiciously asked. Who are you? The silver-armored man waved his blade and domineeringly said, I am Zhao country's Marquis Xianping, Xiao Ji. Digression, the little chicken monkey is here. Do I have a monthly ticket? I really want to break through 5,000. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1057365521. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com. Chapter 846. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Xiao Ji. Chu Feipeng clenched his fists and furrowed his brows. He looked up at Marquis Xianping standing high on the chariot. The country of Zhao was only a lower country and could not enter the eyes of a higher country. However, Chu Feipeng had heard of this name before. A man who was on the beauty rankings of the 6 countries had even pushed down the princess of the country of Liang. As a man, he did not pay attention to this kind of thing. However, his sister was an imperial concubine and he could hear her chatter every time he entered the palace. In addition, he heard that this person did not have a good reputation. He was arrogant and extremely shameless. Those who had fought with him all had headaches over this person. Chu Feipeng formed an initial impression of Marquis Xianping based on the information he had heard in the past. That was, an embroidered pillow that liked to play tricks. As he thought about it, Chu Feipeng did not feel much fear towards Marquis Xianping who came on the chariot. However, it was very strange. Didn't the army of the country of Zhao go to Qishui to attack the navy of the country of Yen? Why did Marquis Xianping come to Yen Gate Pass? Also, the chariot under his feet looked a bit familiar. Marquis Xianping. I stole it from the camp of the country of Liang in the valley. Chu Feipeng temporarily put aside his doubts and looked lightly at Marquis Xianping. It seems that you recognize this general. Chu Feipeng could speak the language of the country of Zhao. Marquis Xianping curled his lips. If you want to fight, you have to figure out which chicken you want to kill and which dog you want to kill. Chu Feipeng's face darkened. Marquis Xianping, you are impudent. He was only a marquis of a lower country and dared to look down on him, a general of a higher country. Marquis Xianping looked down at him and pointed his long sword. He said arrogantly, Who do you think you are to control whether this marquis is impudent or not? Chu Feipeng's status as a higher country was greatly challenged. To be honest, the relationship between the state of Liang and the state of Zhao was not too bad these years. The 3 major states all had their own tributes. For example, the state of Zhao tributes the state of Liang, the state of Zhao tributes the state of Yen, and the state of Chen tributes the state of Jin. Just last year, their country of Liang's Prince Yu went on a diplomatic trip to the country of Zhao. It seemed that the negotiations went well. After Prince Yu returned to the capital, he put in a lot of good words for Zhao. Thinking of this, Chu Feipeng temporarily suppressed the surging anger in his heart. Marquis Xianping, are you mistaken? The target you are attacking is the Dark Wind Cavalry of Great Yen, not the army of the state of Liang. Marquis Xianping curled his lips into a smile. I didn't make a mistake. The person I want to beat is you. You bastard! You! Chu Feipeng was enraged. He was not a person who was easily angered. On the contrary, his temperament was very steady and calm. However, Marquis Xianping had the ability to anger people to the point that Buddha was born and Buddha ascended to the heavens. At this moment, the young man in black carried the commander of the Black Wind Cavalry onto the chariot. Chu Feipeng's mind suddenly flashed with the words Marquis Xianping had just said, his son. Chu Feipeng said coldly, Marquis Xianping, take off his helmet and look clearly. He is the commander of Great Yan's Black Wind Cavalry, not your son. If it was a misunderstanding caused by the wrong person, then there was no need. Marquis Xianping touched Gu Jiao's helmet again and again, causing Gu Jiao to roll her eyes at him. You're awake? He said with a smile. Chong Jing had already found the protective talisman she had thrown away and put it back on her. The killing intent in her body slowly calmed down. However, her exhausted body fell into a state of great weakness. Marquis Xianping played with her helmet like he was playing with a doll. Her face was dark and she did not want to say a word. This was definitely not an interaction between strangers. Chu Feipeng's heart surged with an ominous premonition. Could it be that you? Marquis Xianping took back his dirty hand and looked at Chu Feipeng. He pointed at Gu Jiao and said, What's his name? Chu Feipeng, Xiao Lulang. Marquis Xianping's lips curled. What's mine? Xiao Ji. Xiao Lulang, Xiao Ji. Yes, I heard that this little commander came from Zhao country. So, he and Marquis Xianping were really father and son. Hey! Are you done being arrogant up there? Can we not push it anymore? The chariot is very heavy. Suddenly, a man's voice came from behind the chariot. Chu Feipeng narrowed his eyes. There was someone else. Gu Jiao turned her eyes and glanced at Marquis Xianping Ho from the corner of her eyes. So this is how you got your awesome entrance? Marquis Xianping coughed lightly. Okay, let's stop here. Tang Yueshan shook the sweat off his forehead and used his qinggong. He jumped up with the Tang Bao and landed beside Marquis Xianping. He looked at Gu Jiao, who was supported by Chong Jing. You're badly hurt. Gu Jiao waved a finger to greet him. Hello, little henchman. Chu Feipeng saw the big bow in Tang Yueshan's hand and knew that the arrow that pierced his sleeve was shot by this person. What a sharp archery! The bow in his hand was a 3-stone bow. Ordinary archers used 1-stone bows. Only some sharpshooters with amazing arm strength in the military camp used 2-stone bows. So, what kind of freak was this man to be able to draw a 3-stone bow? Tang Yueshan didn't notice Chu Feipeng's look at him. He turned his head and looked behind the chariot. Hey Gu! Why aren't you coming up? How long are you going to hide behind the chariot? Or do you want to push the chariot alone? Marquis Xianping gave Tang Yueshan a cold stare and used his qinggong to jump onto the chariot. Gu Jiao's eyes widened in an instant. At this moment, her mask was down, only revealing a pair of eyes that had regained their calmness. She blinked and somehow found the strength to pull out a small notebook and a charcoal pencil from her armor. She wrote crookedly, Brother, long time no see. This action exhausted Gu Jiao's last bit of strength. After she finished writing, her head tilted, her hands dropped, and she fainted. Marquis Xianping's breath was stuck in his throat. Tang Yueshan checked Gu Jiao's breath. She was still breathing. He turned to Chu Feipeng. This is the guy who hurt Xiaoya. Lu Lang. He has some skills. Who's going to fight him? Marquis Xianping had seen the fight from afar. This general of the Liang kingdom was extraordinary in martial arts. They must not underestimate him. Together. Marquis Xianping said seriously. As soon as he finished speaking, Song Kai arrived with a group of masters. It seems that we can't fight together. Tang Yueshan stretched his neck and drew the big bow in his hand. Leave these people to me. He occupied the commanding position and was perfect for shooting masters. Chong Jing. Marquis Xianping gave the boy in black a look. Chong Jing walked to Marquis Xian Ping and stuffed the unconscious Gu Jiao into his hands. Marquis Xian Ping trembled. "What are you doing?" "I'm going to kill someone," Chong Jing said expressionlessly. She pulled out the long sword on her back and stabbed at Chu Feiping. Marquis Xian Ping looked at Gu Jiao lying on his arms. His whole body stiffened. His arms were stretched out as if he couldn't wait to send her far away. Marquis Xian Ping. "What? Take this girl away." He didn't care about this stinky girl. She didn't want to be the daughter of a marquis and came all the way to the Yen Kingdom. She even learned to fight like a man. Now she had a taste of her own medicine. Did she think the battlefield was a good place? Blood flowed like a river and corpses were everywhere. She could lose her life at any time. With a loud bang, Chu Feiping and Chong Jing began to fight fiercely. The commotion caused by their fight was so great that Chu Feiping sent a rock flying with a palm strike. The stone flew straight at Gu Jiao. Marquis Xian Ping gritted his teeth. He held Gu Jiao with one hand and picked up the shield on the ground with the other to block the flying stone. Song Kai didn't stay idle either. Seeing the masters dying one by one under Tang Yueshan's arrows, he also sent out his own archers. The rain of arrows covered the sky and covered the earth as they came at them. Marquis Xian Ping knelt on one knee. He was very disgusted but had no choice but to use the shield to protect Gu Jiao in his arms. The arrows hit the hard shield. Fortunately, the shield was specially made in the Liang Kingdom. It was incomparably strong and durable. If it were the shield of the Zhao Kingdom, it would have been shot into a sieve. Even so, it wasn't easy for him to block so many arrows all by himself, okay? Marquis Xian Ping. You. Do something. Marquis Xian Ping suddenly sensed something. He turned his head and saw that Marquis Xian Ping had circled behind him and was squatting on the ground to dodge the arrows. Marquis Xian Ping. Can you be a little more shameless? Chu Feiping and Chong Jing exchanged more than 10 moves but still couldn't finish off the young Chong Jing. Chu Feiping unsheathed the sword at his waist. These days, there aren't many young people who can force me to use my sword. Kid, you and Xiao Lulang are the same. Both of you have made me look at you in a new light. Unfortunately, you are loyal to the wrong person. With your ability, if you are willing to pledge allegiance to me, I will give you a bright future. Chong Jing thought for a while and said to Chu Feiping, "Dream on." Chu Feiping choked. This was the nonsense that little Jing Kong had learned from Su Porridge, and then it was learned by Chong Jing. Chu Feiping said coldly, "Kid, it seems that you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Very well, this general will kill you first, then kill the rest of them. Next, this general is going to be serious. You better be careful." Chu Feiping's reputation was not undeserved. Back then, he was as famous as Gong Sun Yu and Shenyuan Cheng. He once challenged Shenyuan Li alone and successfully lasted more than 100 moves. Even Shenyuan Li couldn't help but praise his swordsmanship. Chong Jing's swordsmanship was mainly fast, and his was known for its dominance. In the first move, Chong Jing's arm was numb. In the second move, Chong Jing's meridians were shattered. In the third move, Chong Jing's weapons were all broken. Chong Jing looked at Chu Feiping and then at the bare sword hilt in his hand. He frowned and rushed back to the chariot. "I can't beat him." The rain of arrows had been suppressed by Tang Yueshan, so the chariot was safe for the time being. "Stay here," Marquis Xian Ping said to Chong Jing, then jumped off the chariot with his long saber. He held the long saber hilt and walked toward Chu Feiping step by step. The frivolous aura on his body was rapidly fading away, and in its place was an overbearing murderous aura that made people tremble in fear. If the junior commander of the Black Wind Battalion was said to be a young killing god, then the person in front of them was the king of the netherworld from the 9-tier purgatory. His entire aura changed. His footsteps silently stepped on the sand, but it also seemed to be stepping on everyone's hearts. Everyone's heart sank. As he walked closer, the tip of his saber scratched the ground with a piercing sound. The dark clouds in the sky pressed down layer by layer, and the sky became gloomy. The west wind whistled, blowing sand and stones, making it difficult to open one's eyes. Marquis Xian Ping stopped 3 feet away from Chu Feipeng. His long saber stabbed into the ground, sending 3 feet of stone flying. The surrounding Liang Bing's heart trembled. Even Tang Yueshan's expression changed. Xiao Luo, was he going to be serious? Ever since Marquis Xian Ping's waist was injured, no one had seen him fight. Some said that his martial arts had been crippled, while others said that he could never return to his former strength. Many masters had come and gone by his side, and Chong Jing was the one who had been with him the longest. Only Tang Yueshan knew that Marquis Xian Ping would not be crippled so easily. That was because Marquis Xian Ping was the #1 master in the underground arena. The world only knew of the beauty rankings of the 6 nations, but did not know that this guy had slaughtered the entire underground arena of the Great Yen. He did not have the chance to fight with Shenyuan Li, otherwise, he would have a place among the generals who were as famous as Shenyuan Cheng. After so many years, Tang Yueshan was very excited to see Marquis Xian Ping fight again. He clutched his chest. My heart is beating faster because of a man. Marquis Xian Ping said calmly, I haven't fought personally for many years. Chu Feipeng, you are very lucky. Chu Feipeng looked at him with disdain. You have to hide behind your comrades when facing a rain of arrows. Don't embarrass yourself in front of me. Is that so? Marquis Xian Ping curled his right lip. I'll let you have 3 moves. I'll let you have 3 moves first. That's not necessary. I want to save face. Chu Feipeng could not be bothered to talk nonsense with him. He waved his long sword and stabbed straight at Marquis Xian Ping's heart. A battle between masters did not require fancy moves. As long as it was fast, ruthless, and accurate enough, it would be a hit. Chu Feipeng was very confident in his swordsmanship, but he did not expect his sword to slash past Marquis Xian Ping's waist. He missed. How was that possible? First move. Marquis Xian Ping said. Chu Feipeng frowned and kicked at Marquis Xian Ping's lower body. While Marquis Xian Ping dodged in the air, Chu Feipeng took his head with a backhand sword. But he missed again. Marquis Xian Ping moved his wrist and said casually, There is one more move. Chu Feipeng said coldly, Who asked you to let me have one move first? You can't hit me, so you're finding excuses for yourself. Good. Die. This move, Chu Feipeng attacked Marquis Xian Ping's right arm. He had stabbed him. Just as Chu Feipeng was about to celebrate his victory, Marquis Xian Ping's figure suddenly dodged. That sword naturally missed again. Chu Feipeng found it unbelievable. Marquis Xian Ping held the saber in his hand. You have used your 3 moves. Now, it's my turn. Chu Feipeng said sarcastically, Don't try to be mysterious. It's impossible for you to kill me. Is that so? Marquis Xian Ping drew his saber and slashed at Chu Feipeng, but Chu Feipeng blocked it with his sword. Is this all you have? Isn't it too weak? Chu Feipeng froze. Marquis Xian Ping's saber was a pair of sabers. At the instant Chu Feipeng blocked it with his sword, Marquis Xian Ping quickly drew his other saber and stabbed Chu Feipeng in the chest. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are read for free. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1057136696. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 847. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. Chu Feiping lowered his head in disbelief and looked at the long saber that had pierced his chest. He did not expect Xian Ping Ho to be so fast, nor did he expect that it was actually a pair of sabers. Tang Yueshan's heart raced. What the F***ck? Actually, it wasn't too appropriate to call it one move. Strictly speaking, the 3 moves that Marquis Xian Ping Ho gave Chu Feiping should also be counted. Although he didn't seem to attack, he was actually observing. There was no such thing as a free reward in this world, and there was no such thing as an easy victory. It was all about tempering one's troops and preparing one's horses. From the moment Chong Jing and Chu Feiping exchanged blows, Xian Ping Ho began to observe and analyze Chu Feiping's moves. But that was from afar, and it was inevitable that he would miss out on some details. Thus, he allowed him to make 3 more moves, closely watching the details of every move he made. Although it seemed like he had only taken the initiative to attack once, he had already exchanged more than 100 blows with Chu Feiping in his mind when they were on the war chariot. Tang Yueshan said in admiration, "Old Xiao, you're amazing." Marquis Xian Ping Ho said very pertinently, "Chu Feiping is not weak. He lost so quickly because he underestimated his opponent." Tang Yueshan felt that what Marquis Xian Ping said was reasonable, but why did it sound so unbelievable when such humble words came from Marquis Xian Ping's mouth? Marquis Xian Ping sighed in all seriousness. If he wasn't so careless, he might have been able to last 1 more move against me. Tang Yueshan was speechless. "You can only choose between your dignity and your life, right?" Hiss. Marquis Xian Ping suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air and bent down. He used one hand to support himself on the ground with the long saber and the other hand to support his waist. "I owe this Marquis waist." The corner of Tang Yueshan's mouth twitched. "Can you be more handsome than 3 seconds?" Marquis Xian Ping said bitterly. "What are you standing there for? Come down and help me up." Tang Yueshan pursed his lips and was about to jump down from the chariot when he saw Chu Feiping, who was lying in a pool of blood, pick up the sword on the ground and thrust it at Marquis Xian Ping's back. Marquis Xian Ping was tormented by his waist injury and was caught off guard. It was too late for Tang Yueshan to react. The long sword had already stabbed out. He turned pale with fright and shouted, "Old Xiao!" Below the city wall, the Liang army and the Black Wind cavalry were still engaged in an intense battle. The left wing of the Black Wind cavalry suffered the heaviest casualties. Cavalry and war horses constantly fell, but new war horses and cavalry were constantly replenished. After Tong Zhong escorted Gu Jiao to the rear of the Liang Kingdom's army, he immediately rushed back, but he was still unable to turn the tide. He had been stabbed 3 times, twice in his left leg and once in his abdomen. Even his armor had been pierced through. Judging from the situation of the battle between the 2 armies, the Liang Kingdom's army had suffered more losses. However, the Liang Kingdom's army also had more people. Even if the ratio was 3-1, the Liang Kingdom's army would still be the last to survive. Tong Zhong swung his sword at another Liang soldier. Unfortunately, he had used up all his strength, and this sword strike did not cause any damage to his opponent. The other party only staggered for a moment before immediately charging at Tong Zhong. Tong Zhong did not have the strength to dodge this sword. He was very clear that he could not even pick up the sword. He was going to die. "Junior Commander, I may have to go first. I have misunderstood you in the past. Please don't blame me. You have to live well and lead the Black Wind cavalry to win this battle. In the next life, we will fight side by side." Tong Zhong fell to the ground. However, the Liang Kingdom soldier did not stab him. Mu Qingchen killed him with a single strike. Mu Qingchen helped Tong Zhong to his feet, and while protecting Tong Zhong, he fought his way out. The once spotless first young master of Chengdu was now covered in the blood of the enemy. Every move he made was a killing move. He did not give the enemy any chance to survive. In just a few days, the cruel battlefield had taught him a profound truth. Mercy to the enemy was cruelty to the companions. Cheng Fugue and Li Jin's situation wasn't very good either. Cheng Fugue had been injured before, and although he had recovered, the strength in his left arm was still a lot weaker than before after 100 days of recovery. The middle army had already been fighting with the right wing. Chang Fugui and Li Jin were guarding each other. Chang Fugui gasped, "The vanguard can't hold on much longer." Li Jin swallowed his saliva and said with difficulty, "The vanguard can't hold on much longer. If the Liang Kingdom's army did not retreat, the Black Wind Cavalry would really be finished." Li Jin said, "Junior Commander went to assassinate the Liang Kingdom's general." "I hope she can succeed," Chang Fugui said, "but it has been so long." Chang Fugui did not finish his words, but the two of them knew. They saw with their own eyes that Tong Zhong escorted Gu Jiao to the back of the Liang Kingdom's army. It had been half an hour since then. It would not take that long to assassinate a person. Unless Junior Commander was in trouble. Or even worse, the Junior Commander had been killed instead. The two of them clenched the spears in their hands. Thinking that the fierce and cute Junior Commander might die in the hands of the Liang Kingdom's bastards, their hearts burned with a raging fire. Kill these King bastards. While the two of them were fighting, a low bugle sounded from the back of the Liang Kingdom's army. This was the bugle call to attack? The Liang Kingdom's army was going to attack. Junior Commander was killed. Woo! Another bugle call sounded. Wait, no, this was not an attack. It was a retreat. The Liang Kingdom's army was retreating. Ha ha ha. Accompanied by a wild laughter, a man wearing the Yen Kingdom's armor rushed out from the Liang Kingdom's army with a bloody head in his hand. "Chu Feipeng's head is here. Your Liang Kingdom's general was killed. The Yen Kingdom's reinforcements are here. Bastards from the Liang Kingdom. Give me your life." It was Tang Yueshan. The Liang Kingdom's army was in chaos. They even panicked when they retreated. The Black Wind Cavalry, who were already at the end of their rope, suddenly became energetic. The Imperial Court's reinforcements were finally here. The Liang Kingdom's general was finally dead. The Liang Kingdom's army was leaderless. If they did not kill now, when would they? Chang Fugui shouted at the top of his lungs. He raised the spear in his hand and shouted, "Bastards from the Liang Kingdom killed so many of our Black Wind Cavalry. You want to escape? Not so easy. Brothers, charge for me. Kill them all." Since the Imperial Court's army was here, the garrison camp did not need to be a reserve force anymore. Li Jin ordered his subordinates, "Go and tell General Zhou and General Zhang that the garrison camp will join the battle. Kill the bastards from the Liang Kingdom." Yes. What followed was a full-scale revenge by the Black Wind Cavalry. Of the 80,000 Liang Kingdom's army that attacked the city, less than 30,000 managed to escape safely. However, when the Black Wind Cavalry reached the rear, they did not find any trace of the Imperial Court's army. There was only a chariot that was destroyed by the fleeing Liang Kingdom's army, and 3 dusty men sitting cross-legged on the roadside, old, middle-aged, and young. Next to the old man was their young commander, and next to the young man was a Liang Kingdom soldier of unknown identity. The Black Wind King was next to the young commander, sniffing the young commander's breath from time to time. The young commander was still alive, but unconscious. Along the way, the young commander was alert and vigilant. He did not even relax when he was sleeping. However, they did not know if it was an illusion, but at this moment, the young commander seemed to be sleeping very soundly beside these people. They did not have the heart to disturb him. After a while, one of the cavalrymen said weakly, What's going on? Aren't they Great Yan's reinforcements?" "Don't tell me the Great Yan's reinforcements that the lunatic was talking about are these guys? Ha 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 ha. It's so fun to kill them. Liang bastards. Don't run away. Keep fighting with your grandfather." Everyone was speechless. "Ugh, that lunatic is here." Tang Yueshan jumped off his horse. He was riding a Black Wind Cavalry, and he felt so good. He looked at Marquis Xian Pingho and the other two in confusion. Old Xiao, Old Gu, Chong Jing, what happened to you guys?" The 3 of them were expressionless and spat out a mouthful of dust. The Liang Kingdom's army had scattered and fled. There was a lot of dust on the roadside. The Liang soldier lying on the ground was Chu Feipeng. The head in Tang Yueshan's hand was not Chu Feiping's head, but a Liang soldier's. It was so bloody that it could not be recognized. In addition, he was the one who blew the horn to retreat. Just now, Chu Feiping faked his death and attacked Marquis Xian Ping Ho. To be honest, even Tang Yueshan thought that Marquis Xian Ping Ho would not survive. No one expected that Marquis Xian Ping Ho would strike Chu Feiping's sword with a frenzied saber. Marquis Xian Ping Ho's murderous aura was like a rainbow. He stepped on Chu Feiping's bleeding chest. He looked at Chu Feiping coldly. His unfathomable eyes were like a bottomless abyss. Chu Feiping, you're not enough to sneak attack me. Tang Yueshan was sure that Marquis Xian Ping Ho's waist injury was not faked. He was also sure that Marquis Xian Ping Ho had let down his guard. He could only say that Marquis Xian Ping Ho's reaction was so fast that it was beyond the limit of ordinary masters. He was able to fight his way from the underground arena of Zhao Kingdom to Yen Kingdom. He was the number one of the lower kingdoms and defeated the number one of the higher kingdoms. He did not rely on luck, but on his strength. However, he hid his real identity and appearance in the underground arena. The only time he lost his mask on the street was when the artist upstairs saw him. Since then, he set a precedent for men to be on the beauty list of the 6 kingdoms. Let him think. Who knocked off old Zhao's mask? It seemed to be a woman, called something Yen. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that you can't find on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964282/1057132449. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 848. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are all available here. Mang Mountain, where the Imperial Army was stationed. The heavy rain lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, which destroyed the road ahead. The soldiers braved the rain for 2 days, but they still couldn't completely clear the road. In a tent lit by candles, a little palace maid dressed as a manservant, Huan came in with a plate of fresh wild fruits. "Your Highness, this is the fruit that I just picked. Please have a taste." Shangguan Yen lightly said, "I have no appetite, you can eat it yourself. But these are specially prepared for your Highness. This slave's hand is scratched," Huaner said while showing the wound on her hand. After getting along with each other these days, Huaner had already grasped the temperament of the Crown Princess. The Crown Princess was not blindly amenable to coaxing but not coercion. As long as she acted pitiful to her, it generally wouldn't be too difficult. Shangguan Yen looked at her red and swollen hand and sighed, "Put it on the table." Huaner happily put the fruit on the small table. Shangguan Yen picked up a red fruit and thought of the 3 children in different places. She didn't know how they were doing. "Your Highness, General Wang wants to see you." A guard's voice came from outside the tent. "Come in," Shangguan Yen said. Huaner sensibly pushed behind the screen and began to tidy up Shangguan Yan's clothes. "Your Highness, Yi Qing wants to see you." Yi Qing's voice also came from outside the tent. "Come in," Shangguan Yen said. Wang Man and Yi Qing entered the tent together. Yi Qing didn't go with the army. He was ordered by the state preceptor to transport medicinal materials to the front line. He set off a few days later because the Imperial Army was delayed by the heavy rain in Mang Mountain, which allowed him to catch up. Wang Man had always looked down on the charlatans of the state preceptor hole. He didn't look at Yi Qing at all. Yi Qing didn't care and respectfully saluted Shangguan Yen, Your Highness. Shangguan Yen looked at the two and said, "Why did you come to see me?" Yi Qing, as a junior, no matter what Wang Man's attitude was, he still abided by his duty and showed the etiquette of the State Preceptor Hall. He motioned for Wang Man to speak first. Wang Man didn't stand on ceremony with him. He straightened his back and said, "I'm here to report to the Crown Princess that the road has been cleared. We can depart tomorrow morning." Shangguan Yen secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, we can set off. The soldiers have worked hard. We have stayed here for a few days and delayed our journey to Chuyang. I wonder how the Black Wind Cavalry is doing. Before the heavy rain washed away the roads, the scouts sent back the news that the Black Wind Cavalry had taken back Chuyang City. However, what followed was the news that the Liang Kingdom's army was going to attack Chuyang City. Wang Man coldly snorted and said, "The Black Wind Cavalry is not good at defending a city. Moreover, we still have to defend against the tens of thousands of rebels in the city. In my humble opinion, Chuyang City will most likely fall." Humph, a child is a child, too soft-hearted. He should have killed all of the rebels when he captured them to prevent future troubles. What was the point of seizing it? If the Nangong family were to raise their arms, the rebels in the city would definitely cooperate with the Liang Kingdom's army. What a waste of the Black Wind Cavalry's military strength. They're all going to die in that brat's hands. Yi Qing coldly glanced at Wang Man. "General Wang, did you personally go to Chuyang City to see, or did you go to the battlefield? What you said is clear and logical. If Chuyang City is successfully defended, will you kneel down and call the Black Wind Cavalry's commander Big Brother?" Yi Qing has always had the image of a gentle senior brother. He treated people gently and politely, and rarely showed such a thorny side. In Shangguan Qing's words, "I can give you face, but you can't not know it in your heart." Wang Man opened his arms. Humph. If he can defend it, then why not let him be the great general of the West? Under normal circumstances, when the Crown Princess heard this, she should have come forward to stop it. "General Wang, what are you talking about? You are the most senior elder, and your experience in leading troops is unparalleled. The position of the great general is yours. How can you give it to a fledgling brat?" The reality is, the Crown Princess looked at Wang Man in surprise and helplessly said, "Since the great general said so, then, this one will be the witness." Wang Man. Shangguan Yen looked at Yi Qing again. "Yi Qing, why are you looking for me?" Yi Qing cupped his hands and said, "Originally, I wanted to say that if the road is blocked tomorrow, I will take a detour first, but it's okay now." And Shangguan Yen nodded and looked at the rainy night outside the tent. "I really want to reach Chuyang City soon." Chuyang City. After a big battle, the North Gate was full of devastation. The city's defenders were cleaning up the mess at the scene. The medical officers and soldiers evacuated the wounded soldiers from the scene. At the city gate, a medical officer and a city's defender were carrying a wounded soldier covered with blood on a stretcher. Suddenly, the medical officer's footsteps stepped on the corpse on the ground. He staggered and the stretcher was tilted. Ah! The medical officer was shocked. This was a patient with a serious fracture. He couldn't fall again, otherwise, he would die. A large and powerful hand held the stretcher firmly. The defender looked up and respectfully said, "General Ji Pingchuan, the North Gate's defender." Thank you, General Ji." The medical officer from Chengdu heard the defender call him General Ji, so he also called him General Ji. General Ji slightly nodded. "Are you okay?" "It's okay." The medical officer lifted the stretcher again and entered the North Gate with the soldiers. Not long after, another group of people came to the scene. Ji Pingchuan turned around and bowed to the leader, Lord Chong. Although they were both generals, the ranks of the two were not the same. Tsun Takashi was the leader of all the defenders and the commander of the border. Tsun Takashi dismounted from his horse and looked at the bloody scene. He frowned and asked, "What's the situation? How did the Liang Kingdom retreat?" Ji Pingchuan said, "The imperial court sent 4 reinforcements." 4. Tsun Takashi was shocked. He wasn't surprised by the small number of reinforcements, but that they were able to make the 80,000-strong Liang Kingdom retreat. Ji Pingchuan explained, "They helped Commander Xiao to mess up the rear of the Liang Kingdom's army and cut off Chu Feiping's head. They even sounded the retreat horn without permission. The Liang Kingdom's army was in a panic when their commander was killed, so their morale dropped. It was really the Liang Kingdom's commander sounding the retreat horn, so they all retreated. The Black Wind cavalry chased after them and killed many of their soldiers." Could it be done like that? What kind of shameless tactic was that? Tsun Takeshi didn't know what to say. The cowardly ones starved to death, while the bold ones were stuffed to death. What did it mean to fight a battle to the death? This was it. The success rate of this plan was less than 10%. If it was Tsun Takeshi, he definitely wouldn't be able to do it. Firstly, he couldn't kill Chu Feiping. Secondly, how did he come up with the idea of sounding the retreat horn? "How's Commander Xiao?" Tsun Takeshi asked. Ji Pingchuan said, "He's injured, so he went back to the camp for treatment." In the commander's tent, Gu Jiao was lying unconscious on the cold and hard bed. The old duke and a medical officer were also in the tent. The medical officer didn't know the old duke. He only heard from the soldiers that he was a reinforcement sent by the imperial court. The medical officer went to remove Gu Jiao's armor. The old duke frowned. "Wait." The medical officer was shocked by the stern voice. He quickly retracted his hand and asked in a daze, "Sir, what's the matter?" The old duke looked at Gu Jiao indifferently and asked in a deep voice, "Is there a female medical officer?" The medical officer said, "Yes." The old duke didn't allow any refusal. "Call the female medical officer to apply medicine on him." Ah! The medical officer was stunned. Why would a male medical officer need a female medical officer to treat him? The old duke's expression was frighteningly cold. The medical officer didn't know that he wasn't an official of the imperial court and thought that he was a trusted aide of the crown princess. He didn't dare to offend him, so he hurriedly called a female medical officer over. The female medical officer was also very puzzled as to why she was sent to take care of the young commander. Her medical skills weren't bad, but she had little experience and was a woman. It was very difficult for her to be put in an important position. When she entered the tent, the old duke came out. The female medical officer made a terrible assumption. But when she saw that the young commander was indeed unconscious and couldn't have done anything to any woman, she became even more puzzled. "So why did you call me?" The female medical officer was puzzled as she removed the young commander's armor. When she used a pair of scissors to cut open his blood-soaked clothes, she was completely stunned. Gu Jiao slept soundly and didn't wake up until the evening of the third day. When she opened her eyes, the female medical officer was changing the dressing on her arm. Her eyes subconsciously flashed a trace of cold vigilance. The female medical officer was so frightened that her hands trembled and the medicine fell. "I've seen you before. You're the accompanying female medical officer." The vigilance in Gu Jiao's eyes dissipated. She sat up and said, "How long have I been asleep?" The female medical officer picked up the medicine and said in a frightened voice, 3 days. Gu Jiao said, "It's been so long. How's the battle situation?" "The army of the Liang Kingdom has retreated. They suffered heavy casualties. They shouldn't attack the city in the short term," the female medical officer said and glanced at Gu Jiao's clothes. Young commander, you." Gu Jiao followed her gaze and looked down. Oh, her clothes were open. The wound on her chest had been treated and wrapped with thick gauze. It seemed that her identity as a female had been exposed. As if guessing Gu Jiao's thoughts, the female medical officer hurriedly said, I didn't tell anyone." The dignified old general forbade her to spread the news. He even said that if she dared to leak a word, he would kill her with a knife. Thinking of that person, the female medical officer's eyes lit up. "Young commander, the old general has been guarding the door of the tent these days when you were in a coma. He didn't allow anyone to come in. I'll tell him that you're awake." As she spoke, she walked around the screen to the door of the tent. She lifted the curtain that the old general had thickened. However, she didn't see the old general. The female medical officer scratched her head. It's strange. He has been here for the past few days. Old Gu, are you going out? Tang Yueshan had just returned from a stroll on the Black Wind horse when he saw the old duke dressed as a merchant. It seemed that he was going out. The old duke said, I'm going to Puqing to inquire about the news. Puqing was a city of the Great Yen that had been captured by the Jin state. It was less than 100 miles away from Zuyang City. It would take 2 days to get there on horseback. Tang Yueshan raised his eyebrows in surprise. You're finally willing to help? Didn't you say you didn't want to get involved? Don't blame me and old Xiao for dragging you here by force. The old duke took a few steps forward and looked at the bright moon in the gray sky. He said seriously, let's make it clear first. I'm not doing this for the Yen state or that girl. It's you two who acted on your own and got the Zhao state involved in the war between the Shan kingdoms. It's impossible to play it safe. The Jin state and the Liang state are on good terms with each other. The Jin state won't let the Zhao state go. We can only fight with our backs against the wall. After he finished, he didn't wait for Tang Yueshan's response and turned around. He saw that Tang Yueshan had already led the horse to the front. The old duke clenched his fists so hard that his knuckles cracked. So I've said so much for nothing? Since when did these two become so infuriating? Gu Jiao was seriously injured, but her recovery speed was amazing. After lying in bed for 3 days, she was fine. When everyone heard that the young commander had woken up, they were so happy that they couldn't wait to visit her in her tent. However, they were stopped by the medical officers. Gu Jiao called Advisor Hu and asked him about the casualties of the Black Wind Battalion. Advisor Hu sighed. We were all prepared to sacrifice ourselves. Thanks to your father. My father? Gu Jiao was confused for a long time before she remembered that she had seen Marquis Xian Ping before she fainted. The father advisor who mentioned should be Marquis Xian Ping. This was a fierce battle. Sacrifices were inevitable. However, compared to the total annihilation, most of the Black Wind Battalion soldiers were saved. Advisor Hu said regretfully, Chang Fugue, Li Jin, and Tong Zhong are seriously injured. They may not be able to participate in the following battles. What about Mu Qingchen? Gu Jiao asked. At the mention of this, Advisor Hu's expression turned serious. Young Master Mu's performance was very surprising. His growth speed was very fast, and he was no longer the pampered young master of an aristocratic family who would vomit after killing people. He was brave and decisive on the battlefield, killing countless soldiers of the Liang kingdom and saving many of his Black Wind cavalry comrades. Cheng Fugue was also saved by him. He was also slightly injured, but it was not a big deal. Gu Jiao nodded secretly. Mu Qingchen had also become stronger. That was great. In that dream, Mu Qingchen did not encounter the Liang state. He directly faced the Jin state army. Because he could not bear to kill, he missed the opportunity to escape. He was surrounded by the Jin army and was shot dead by Gong Sun Yu. Mu Qingchen would not be merciful now, would he? If he encountered such a predicament again, he would definitely be able to kill his way out. Gong Sun Yu's arrow would not have a chance to hit him, right? His ending would also be rewritten, right? Gu Jiao washed up and dressed neatly. She went to see the Black Wind King first. The Black Wind King had been guarding outside her tent for the past few days. The horse trainer had treated the Black Wind King's injuries. Its head was wrapped in white gauze, making it look very pitiful. Gu Jiao touched its neck. The Black Wind King sniffed Gu Jiao's breath. Horses were very sensitive. They could tell whether a person's injuries were serious from their breath. I'm fine, Gu Jiao said. The Black Wind King was probably relieved. It slowly lay down on the ground. It was also very tired. However, it did not dare to rest until Gu Jiao woke up. It was just like how it did not dare to grow old before the battle was over. Gu Jiao stayed by its side and gently stroked its mane. She waited until it fell asleep before going to the tent next door. Her old father, Marquis Xian Ping, lived in this tent. When she lifted the curtain and entered, Marquis Xian Ping and Tang Yueshan were both there. Tang Yueshan was wiping his precious Tang family bow, while Marquis Xian Ping was sitting on a long bench. He looked like a bandit. No, domineering. In front of him was a man with disheveled hair and a disheveled face tied to a pillar with iron chains. The man glared at Marquis Xian Ping in front of him. He wanted to pounce on him and bite him. "Kill me if you can." Marquis Xian Ping smiled casually and said, "Why would I kill you? Do I look like a bloodthirsty person? I'm so kind that I can't even bear to kill an ant on the side of the road. How can I bear to kill you?" A bug crawled over. Marquis Xian Ping did not even lift his eyelids. He stomped it to death. The man was speechless. Marquis Xian Ping smiled. "The people outside all think that you're dead. Your subordinates are defeated. The morale of the Liang kingdom has been destroyed. It's impossible for them to recover." Chu Feiping gritted his teeth and said angrily, "What do you want?" Marquis Xian Ping rubbed his hands. "I've been a little short of money recently. I wonder what price the king of the Liang kingdom will pay to redeem you. If the price is too low, it's not too late for me to kill you." Chu Feiping was speechless. Marquis Xian Ping looked up and saw Gu Jiao at the door. He smiled. "Oh, my son is here?" Gu Jiao stepped in and greeted Marquis Xian Ping and Tang Yueshan. "You're awake." Tang Yueshan carefully put down his treasure and walked over to look at her. "You're the same as Chong Jing. You've recovered quite quickly." "Chong Jing is also injured?" Gu Jiao asked. Chong Jing had already fainted when she fought with Chu Feiping. Marquis Xian Ping looked at Chu Feiping and said lightly, "My meridians were shattered by this guy. It's just a minor injury." How could a shattered meridian be considered a minor injury? What kind of pervert was Chong Jing? Gu Jiao's gaze fell on Chu Feiping and she checked his meridians. So this guy was not beheaded. But it didn't matter. His dantian was destroyed and he would be a cripple when he returned. Gu Jiao asked, "Other than him, did you capture anyone else?" Marquis Xian Ping said slowly, "You mean those swordsmen? They're dead." Anyway, she already knew that Long Yi's master was the sword hut. In the future, she could investigate in this direction. Gu Jiao loosened her hand and asked Marquis Xian Ping, "You want to use him to negotiate with the Liang kingdom?" Marquis Xian Ping, N. Gu Jiao suggested, "Then you'd better hide him first." Marquis Xian Ping, "Why?" Gu Jiao said, "The imperial army is about to arrive. Chu Feiping is also a bargaining chip for them to negotiate with the Liang kingdom. You should be careful that they won't snatch Chu Feiping away." "Oh." Marquis Xian Ping laughed arrogantly. "In this world, no one can snatch things from this marquis." Outside the East City Gate, the imperial army arrived. Chong Wei led his subordinates out of the city to welcome them. The group of people knelt on one knee and saluted, "Welcome, Your Highness the Crown Princess." The dusty curtain of the carriage was lifted. Shangguan Yen, dressed in a crown princess robe, came down from the carriage with a dignified look. "Digression, Shangguan Yen. I heard that no one can snatch things from your hands?" Marquis Xian Ping. "Who does Chu Feiping think he is? This small theater is only for entertainment, it doesn't represent the plot." Little Chicken Monkey. Don't be afraid. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642/82642826105691102. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Gu mobile reading website, m. zhbqg.com Chapter 849. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are available here. It was late, and there was only a thin moonlight at the city gate, but it was enough for Shangguan Yen to recognize that the people who came to pick her up were not Gu Jiao and the Black Wind Cavalry. She took 2 steps forward, stared at the man at the front of the line, and said, "Raise your head." "Yes." Tsun Takashi raised his head and looked at the noblest woman in Great Yen. Shangguan Yen was tired, but there was no sign of tiredness between her brows. Her beautiful face was calm and dignified, and her behavior was dignified and decent. She exuded the aura of royalty. Tsun Takashi only took a glance and quickly lowered his eyes. Shangguan Yen said unhurriedly, "You are General Tsun Takashi. When I was young, I saw you in the military camp of Shenyuan family." Tsun Takashi didn't know if he should be flattered or feel guilty. He was now clear about the crimes of Nangong family, and as a confidant of Nangong family, even if he didn't directly participate in the persecution of Shenyuan family, he had indirectly helped the tyrant and committed a lot of crimes. Especially not long ago, he led his troops to fight Black Wind Cavalry, which was tantamount to a blatant betrayal of the imperial court. He didn't know how the crown princess would deal with him. He had thought it over. No matter what, he deserved to be punished, but his subordinates were just following orders. They were innocent. If necessary, he would use his life to atone for his crime. He only hoped that the crown princess would not vent her anger on the Tsuyong garrison. Shangguan Yen took 2 more steps forward, reached out her hand, and bent down slightly to help him up. "General Tsun Takashi, you have worked hard to defend the city. Please get up." Tsun Takashi was stunned. He looked at Shangguan Yen in disbelief. Her beautiful face didn't have the slightest cunning of playing politics. She was sincerely praising him. Although Shangguan Yen didn't know what happened in the city, but looking at Tsun Takashi's attitude, he didn't seem to be in cahoots with Nangong family. In other words, Tsun Takashi was very likely to have been taken in by her daughter-in-law. It would be best if they could make peace. Her dear daughter-in-law would be the one to suffer if she was attacked from both sides. Moreover, the war was imminent. No matter how serious Tsun Takashi and the rebel army's crimes were, it was not appropriate to punish them just like that. It was better to let them redeem themselves and serve the imperial court well. The generosity of the crown princess made the ugliness of the Nangong family even more apparent. Tsun Takashi felt even more guilty. He did not dare to stand up and knelt down on one knee again. "Your Highness, I'm guilty." Shangguan Yen said softly, "Whether it's a crime or not, let's talk about it later. The ground is cold, you get up first, let your soldiers get up too." The words "the ground is cold" made the eyes of the soldiers turn sour. The officers and soldiers did not expect that the crown princess would still care about them. A strong emotion welled up in their hearts. This was not an era where people were judged by their appearance, but Shangguan Yen, as a woman, had a beauty that could cause the downfall of a country. Men who did not know how to be brave would be willing to go through water and tread on fire for her. In addition, she had a noble status, a broad mind, and a heart that cherished the world. At this moment, everyone felt that the person they were waiting for was not Great Yan's crown princess, but their god. They were willing to fight for their god, even if the war was difficult, even if there were tens of thousands of people, they would still go forward. Wang Man dismounted from his horse and walked toward the city gate. His gaze fell on Tsun Takashi and the others, and he could not help but frown. "Aren't you the rebels of the Nangong family? Where are the Black Wind Cavalry? Did they all die in the battle?" These words were very unpleasant. "What do you mean by rebels?" The crown princess said that they were meritorious officials. They were the regular army of the imperial court. Tsun Takashi said in a neither servile nor overbearing tone, "So it's General Wang. The Black Wind Cavalry has set up camp in the city. Because we just won a battle a few days ago and inflicted heavy losses on the Liang family, this general boldly asked my brothers to rest in the camp. I will go out of the city to welcome the crown princess." His words were very clear. First, not only did the Black Wind Cavalry not die in the battle, but they also won a beautiful battle. Second, the Black Wind Cavalry had a very good relationship with the defending army. They could even call each other brothers. Third, he did not like people looking down on the Black Wind Cavalry. Although they were enemies in the beginning, the Black Wind Cavalry used their blood to win the respect of the defending army. This was the strongest military force of the Yen Kingdom, and they would not accept any rebuttal. Wang Man did not pay attention to the defense of the Black Wind Cavalry in his words for the time being. He was extremely shocked. Who did you say won the battle? What battle did they win? Tsun Takashi puffed up his chest and said solemnly and proudly, "The North Gate was deliberately destroyed. The Black Wind Cavalry used their flesh and blood to build the city. 20,000 of them fought the 80,000 soldiers of the Liang family. Not only did they behead the Liang family's General Chu Feiping, but they also lost 50,000 soldiers of the Liang family." Wang Man's jaw almost dropped to the ground. What did you say? Chu Feiping is dead? Chu Feiping was the Liang family's divine general, the spiritual leader of the Liang family. With him around, there was no battle that they could not win. When Wang Man first heard that Chu Feiping was the commander of the army, even he felt that it was very troublesome. On the way here, Wang Man racked his brains to think of a way to deal with Chu Feiping, who knew that before he could even use his fist, Chu Feiping's head fell to the ground. Impossible. No one can kill Chu Feiping. Shangguan Yen thought in her heart. Could it be Jiao Jiao? Except for her, no one should have the courage to behead Chu Feiping. But thinking of Chu Feiping's strength, Shangguan Yen broke into a cold sweat for Gu Jiao. She didn't know if she was injured. In the presence of outsiders, Shangguan Yen restrained her worry about Gu Jiao. She revealed a gratified smile. When I first came to Zuyang, I heard the good news. I'm very happy. If Imperial Father knows about it, he will definitely be very happy. This time, we were able to repel the Liang army, not only because of the Black Wind Cavalry, but also because of General Chang's help in defending the city. Tsun Takashi cupped his fist and said, "This humble subject is ashamed." This humble subject didn't help much in the battle against the Liang family's army at the North Gate. This humble subject doesn't dare to claim credit. However, the 4 experts sent by Her Highness the Crown Princess played an outstanding role in the battle. Our army is like a god. Shangguan Yen was slightly startled. I didn't send any experts to Zuyang. This time, it was Tsun Takashi's turn to be surprised. Aren't they sent by Her Highness the Crown Princess? But they claim to be the Imperial Court's reinforcements. They also have a handwritten letter from Her Highness the Crown Princess. After saying that, Tsun Takashi took out a warm letter from his arms and raised it above his head to present it to Shangguan Yen. After presenting it, he suddenly felt that he was too abrupt. Shouldn't he give it to the palace maid? If a rough man like him touches something, won't it dirty the Crown Princess's hands? But which one is the palace maid? Huan Er was standing next to the Crown Princess dressed like a little eunuch. No wonder he didn't recognize her. Shangguan Yen personally took the letter. Tsun Takashi was secretly relieved. At the same time, he was a little nervous and excited. The Crown Princess has an incomparable noble temperament, but she doesn't put on a high and mighty air. She is really an approachable Crown Princess. After Shangguan Yen opened the letter and read it, she was also confused. It's my handwriting, but I don't remember writing this letter. There's also my personal seal on it. What the hell is going on? Right, there's also this. It says that it's your keepsake. Tsun Takashi pulled out a token and handed it over to Her Highness the Crown Princess. Shangguan Yen held it in her hand and looked. Wasn't this the bank's token that she had given Xiao Heng before leaving? If there wasn't enough money for travel, take it to the bank to get some money. So it was like this? A Heng had come? Didn't A Heng go to Zhongshui Pass to take care of the problems with the countries of Chen and Zhao? Could it be that A Heng had changed her plans and came to Chuyang to meet up with Jiao Jiao? This sort of possibility was not impossible. Tsun Takashi did not hear about the eldest grandson. Looking at it like this, A Heng had concealed her identity and came over. That's also true. The eldest grandson was on his way to Shui Pass. Of course, he could not openly appear in Chuyong City. Forget it, what was she blindly guessing for? When she saw Hang in a bit, wouldn't everything be clear? Shangguan Yen was impatient to see her son. She could not wait to march over with the army. She sat in the carriage and said to Tsun Takashi, "This monarch remembers. There was such a thing. It's this monarch's trusted aide. Lead the way. This monarch wants to see them at the military camp." Yes. Tsun Takashi mounted his horse. Shangguan Yen opened the window and said to Wang Man, who was still immersed in the silence of Chu Fei Peng's death, "Great General Wang, I will leave the army to you. I will trouble you with leading the soldiers to the military camp to meet up with this monarch." Yes. Wang Man recovered and cupped his hands to comply. The carriage entered the city and quickly sped into the night. Shangguan Yen took a deep breath and squeezed her fingers. Faster, faster, even faster. She wanted to see her son. She was almost impatient. She had missed out on so many years in the past. Now, she cherished every day that she could see her son. The carriage stopped at the military camp. "This subordinate." Tsun Takashi spoke. "There's no need to report." Shangguan Yen got off her horse. She wanted to give her son a pleasant surprise. "Which tent are they living in?" "They are all living next to the young commander." As Tsun Takashi led the way, he pointed at the tents in the middle and said, "There are 3 over there. There are 2 people living in the tent on the left. One of them is extremely handsome, while the other is an extremely powerful expert." Handsome? A very powerful expert? Were they not Aheng and Long Yi? An oil lamp was lit inside the tent, and the silhouette of a man could be seen from the tent. It seemed that he was reading at night. To be so diligent, it was definitely Aheng. Also, that perfect nose and the outline of his brow bone were clearly Aheng's. Shangguan Yen lifted her imperial dowager's robe and could not suppress the joy in her heart. Quickly walking over, she lifted the curtain. "Son." Just as she entered, she clearly saw the man inside the tent. The word, "son," was immediately stuck in her throat. The newest chapter of this book has not been completed. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1056701117. HTML Genius. Remember this website's address: www.zhhbqg.com. Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website, zhhbqg.com. Chapter 850. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are all available here. Shangguan Yen blinked. Her first reaction was that she was mistaken. Her second reaction confirmed that the scene in front of her was real. She never expected to see this man in the Black Wind Cavalry's camp. Her son became her son's father. This was a bit shocking. Marquis Xian Ping's reaction was not much better than Shangguan Yan's. He also didn't think that after 20 years, he could see the woman he buried with his own hands again. The main reason was that Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't say anything before coming. There was no earth-shattering quarrel, no commotion. The reunion of the two was unexpectedly calm. Shangguan Yen looked at him in a daze and forgot to speak for a while. Marquis Xian Ping held the military deployment map in his hand, his thin lips tightly pursed. He didn't know what to say first. It was impossible to not recognize the other party. They had been together for so long, and they had a child. But with the passage of time, they were no longer young and inexperienced. He was no longer young and frivolous, but he was more restrained and calm of an adult man. She was no longer the slave girl who was locked in a cage and struggled like a little beast. She changed into a noble crown princess robe. Yes, she was Ahang's mother. Ahang was the eldest grandson of the great Yen emperor. Wasn't she the great Yen crown princess? If he didn't experience it himself, who could imagine that the slave girl he redeemed from the underground martial arts arena was a little phoenix in distress? Marquis Xian Ping's mood suddenly became a little complicated. Empress Dowager Zhuang must have done it deliberately. She deliberately didn't say that Shangguan Yen would come here, deliberately catching him off guard. The Empress Dowager was really ruthless. She took revenge for the disaster at sea. Marquis Xian Ping had always been shameless, but in this situation, he was actually a little, forget it, it's good that she came. He wanted to ask her why she faked her death to escape and why she took away his son. That. Shangguan Yen took the lead to speak, but before she could finish, Tang Yushan rushed in. He lifted the curtain and laughed loudly. Old Xiao, go out and do something. After staying in the military camp for so long, grass was about to grow on his buttocks. Once I'm done, I'll go to that Fengyue brothel for a drink. Didn't you say the girls there were pretty? Marquis Xian Ping, can you shut up? Tang Yueshan slung his broadsword over his shoulder and said sternly, but I just heard that your old flame is coming. Don't let her find out that you've been drinking with girls. Women can be very scary when they're jealous. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Marquis Xian Ping, what else did you not say? Most importantly, Tang Yueshan lowered his voice. You have to hide Chu Feiping well. Don't let your old flame find out. If someone else wants you, you can refuse, but if she wants you, I'm afraid you won't be able to withstand it. Marquis Xian Ping, who had always been the one to sell others, had been sold off by Tang Yueshan. Not even his underwear was left. There was a saying that the heavenly Tao was good at reincarnation. Who would the heavens spare? After Tang Yueshan finished speaking, he realized that the atmosphere in the tent was not right. He looked behind the curtain and saw the crown princess in a royal blue python robe. Tang Yueshan was stunned for 3 seconds. Someone seems to be calling me. I'll leave first. After that, Marshal Tang, who had poked the hornet's nest, decisively withdrew from the scene of the large-scale social death. The atmosphere in the tent was even weirder than before. Shangguan Yen originally wanted to apologize for leaving without saying goodbye that year, but her eyes suddenly became dangerous. Do a job? Are you going to rob the people of Yen Dynasty? And sleep with the girls of Yen Dynasty? It's said that a scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes. Xiao Ji, you really made me look at you with new eyes. Marquis Xian Ping was wronged. After coming to Cuyang, he had never said anything about going to the city to rob people. Going to the brothel was even more nonsense. He didn't even remember saying that the girls in Fengyue brothel were pretty. War was a matter of life and death. Who would have the time to think about that kind of thing? Don't listen to old Tang, Marquis Xian Ping said with a headache. I didn't think so. It's him who wants to go. Shangguan Yen, oh, whether you go or not, what does it have to do with me? You and I just gave birth to a son. Don't expect me to keep thinking about you all these years? Marquis Xian Ping. This seems to be my line. In the end, Shangguan Yen was the crown princess. She didn't indulge in love affairs. What my son's father is going to visit the brothel, so I, as an old flame, have to drink a jar of vinegar, and so on. In her heart, her son was first, and the country was second. Men were fleeting clouds. Shangguan Yen grasped the key point. Using the essence of her great aunt's palace intrigue, the villain attacked first. What's the matter with Chu Feiping? Listening to your companion's tone, he doesn't seem to be dead. Xiao Ji, oh Xiao Ji, I've been feeling indebted to you all these years. It turns out that you're just deliberately scheming against me. Marquis Xian Ping was stunned. What kind of trick was this? It was a bit difficult for him to deal with. After thinking about it, it was all Tang Yueshan's fault. He gritted his teeth and held his forehead. Tang Yueshan, Why didn't I kill you in the first place? Gu Jiao went to the wounded barracks to visit Chang Fugui and the others. She told them to take care of their injuries and then went to Mu Qingchen's tent. However, Mu Qingchen was not in his own tent. She heard from the cavalry that he went to the periphery of the camp to practice swordsmanship. He once felt uncomfortable when he killed someone for the first time. He held the trunk of a tree and retched. Now, he was still under the big tree. He was no longer troubled by killing people. Instead, he was working hard on how to kill more enemies. He stabbed out with his sword again and again, practicing his killing moves that would hit the target in one hit. His white robe could be a warm jade, but it could also be a murderous blade. Gu Jiao didn't disturb him. She quietly watched for a while and then turned to leave. The Imperial Army was still in the city and hadn't arrived at the barracks for the time being. Gu Jiao didn't know that Shangguan Yen had come to the barracks. When she passed by Tang Yueshan's tent, she heard the sound of movement inside. It was so late. What was Tang Yueshan doing? Puzzled, she walked over and lifted the curtain to take a look inside. She saw Tang Yueshan hurriedly packing up his things. She asked, "Where are you going?" "It's only been a few days. Are you going to leave?" Tang Yueshan grabbed a few bottles of medicine and some dry food and put them in a bag. "I'm going to Puqing to find old Gu and hide for a few days." Gu Jiao tilted her head and looked at him strangely. "Why do you want to hide?" Tang Yueshan was not afraid of losing face. He said bluntly, "I sold old Xiao. If I don't hide, old Xiao may kill me." Gu Jiao. While packing up, Tang Yueshan recounted what had happened in the tent. "It's not all my fault. I didn't know his old flame was coming. I thought his old flame was the crown prince's daughter, so she should make some noise when she comes to the camp. I didn't expect her to go to him as soon as she arrived. She didn't even let anyone inform him. It's obvious that she wants to—" He didn't finish his sentence. Tang Yueshan could talk freely in front of Marquis Xianping, but Gu Jiao was a girl. He knew that he couldn't dirty her ears. Gu Jiao. "Oh, the crown princess is here." Then the Imperial Army should have entered the city. Gu Jiao didn't think too much about why she went to find Marquis Xianping instead of informing him. That was between the two of them. She wouldn't interfere. Gu Jiao touched her chin. "The Liang Kingdom's army is weak. It's unlikely that they will fight back. The next step is to drive the Liang Kingdom's army out of Yanmen Pass and take back the new city occupied by the Nangong family. Xuyang City is safe for now. I'll go to Puqing with you." Tang Yueshan asked, "You're going too? Don't you want to stay here?" Gu Jiao said, "I'm not needed here for now." The Black Wind Cavalry had just fought a big battle. They wouldn't fight again for a while. Gu Jiao said, "The information about Puqing is very important. It's better if more people go." Tang Yueshan agreed with him on this point. Jin was the most profound country among the 6 countries. Their military strength and financial resources were far better than the Liang Kingdom. They brought Gong Sun Yu, who was much more difficult to deal with than Chu Feiping. "Okay, let's go find old Gu." By the way, he also wanted to see the scene of old Gu and the little girl recognizing each other. It must be wonderful. Tang Yueshan deliberately didn't tell Gu Jiao that her identity had been exposed to Gu Chao. He was waiting to see the good show between the two. Gu Jiao frowned and looked at him. "I feel that you're holding back something bad." "Was it that obvious?" Tang Yueshan said seriously, "I'm not. Don't talk nonsense." Gu Jiao also went back to the tent to pack some medicinal materials and tools. She also took a first aid kit and a set of night clothes. At this time, Shangguan Yen was still in Marquis Xianping's tent. The candlelight was changed and couldn't illuminate her figure. Gu Jiao thought about it and didn't go in to disturb them. She went to tell Advisor Hu and asked him to tell the Crown Princess and her father that she and old Tang were going to Puqing to spy on the military situation. She estimated that they would return in 3 to 5 days. "Don't you want to go after seeing the Crown Princess?" Advisor Hu was thinking for Gu Jiao. This was a good opportunity to show her face in front of the crown princess. The crown princess would definitely remember his lord's merit. However, if his lord left Xuyang and the imperial army or the border guards also made military contributions, his lord's glory might be taken away. Advisor who was thinking too much. Commander Xiao was the crown princess's daughter-in-law. What merit could there be? Who could surpass Gu Jiao? No, I'm leaving. Gu Jiao went to the tent. The Black Wind King had already woken up and was waiting for her energetically. In fact, Gu Jiao didn't intend to take the Black Wind King with her. She wanted it to rest for a few more days. However, the Black Wind King had already recovered and was ready for battle. It was determined to go with Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao patted its neck and said, "Okay, let's go together." Tang Yueshan came over on his Black Wind Horse. The Black Wind Horse was the most powerful war horse in the 6 countries. After riding it, no other war horse could be compared to it. The Black Wind Horse was so powerful. She wondered how the Black Wind King would feel when riding it. Tang Yueshan coughed softly and said, "Girl, let's make a deal. Let me ride your horse." Gu Jiao said, "Can you let me use your bow?" Tang Yueshan hurriedly protected the Tang bow on his back and said vigilantly, "Only the heir of the Tang family is qualified to touch the Tang bow. You can't." Gu Jiao ignored him and mounted her horse. The Black Wind King suddenly attacked Tang Yueshan's horse. It raised its front hooves, which scared the Black Wind Horse so much that its hair stood on end. "Hey!" Tang Yueshan hurriedly bent down to tighten the reins and calm the frightened Black Wind Horse. Gu Jiao elegantly raised her hand and touched the Tang bow on his back. "Here, I touched it." Tang Yueshan was speechless. One big and one small galloped into the night. They left Xuyang City in the middle of the night and headed in the direction of Pu City. Gu Jiao knew a shortcut that would take them to Puqing before dawn. However, Puqing was occupied by the Jin army. It was not easy to sneak in. The two of them had to disguise themselves, and so did the 2 horses. At least, they couldn't let people know that they were the powerful Black Wind King and Black Wind Horse. "Girl, will this really work?" In a forest near the city gate, Tang Yueshan was smearing mud on the 2 horses under Gu Jiao's command. Gu Jiao was busy combing the Black Wind King's mane. Of course, the messier the mane, the better. They had to look like they had escaped from a nearby city. Gu Jiao then disguised herself and Tang Yueshan. "Are they father and daughter?" Tang Yueshan asked. Gu Jiao glanced at him and said, "They are young master and mute slave." Tang Yueshan was speechless. When everything was ready, the sun had risen. The battered and exhausted duo rode on the dirty and bleeding horses to the entrance of Pu City. Unlike Marquis Xian Ping, Tang Yueshan did not have a lover from the Yen Kingdom. He could not speak the language of the Yen Kingdom. Therefore, the mute slave was very suitable for him. There were already many people waiting in line at the city gate. Some of them were strong men captured by the Jin army from the surrounding areas. Some were villagers who sold vegetables and fodder for the Jin army. They were all selling the crops they had worked hard to grow at a very low price. There were also Jianghu people who were not afraid of death and returned to the city. Tang Yueshan whispered, "Isn't it a bit unbelievable that we escaped from another city? Who would escape to the Jin army's territory?" "Traitors," Gu Jiao said. How could this work?" I am here to join the Jin army. My father is from the Yen Kingdom and my mother is from the Liang Kingdom. Just because the 2 countries were at war, they killed my mother cruelly. They want to kill me. They say I am a bastard of the Liang Kingdom. I am not convinced. Why?" At the city gate, a young man who was about to enter the city broke down and cried. Tang Yueshan's mouth twitched. Was this really true? When it was Gu Jiao and Tang Yueshan's turn, Gu Jiao's purse suddenly fell. She was about to dismount from the horse to pick it up when a fair and clean hand picked up her purse and handed it to her. "Young man, you dropped something." It was a handsome young man. Gu Jiao took the purse. "Thank you." It was a birthday gift from her great-aunt before she left. She had been carrying it with her. The young man smiled. Among the group of people entering the city, the young man's clothes were so clean that people could not help but take a second look at him. Gu Jiao's eyes followed him. He came to a carriage and said through the window, "Young master, I didn't buy the candied haws you wanted to eat. The old lady didn't come out today." That was true. It meant that it was not the first time he came to buy candied haws. With the war going on, the old lady probably did not dare to come. However, this young man still insisted on waiting for her every day. The young man got into the carriage. The carriage slowly drove through the city gate. This person had nothing to do with her. Gu Jiao was about to look away. However, at this moment, a gust of wind blew and the curtain of the carriage window was lifted. Gu Jiao saw the incomparably handsome face in the carriage. Her eyes widened at once. Husband? No, Xiao Heng went to Zhongshuo Pass. It was impossible for him to be here. That person was... Digression. Squatting for a wave of monthly votes, the latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1056668643. HTML Genius memorized the website's address. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 851. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. What are you looking at? Tang Yueshan pulled Gu Jiao's sleeve, indicating the space in front of the horse. It's time to move forward. There was a large space in front of them, and the people in the line behind were impatient. Although they didn't want to enter the city, they can't earn more money if they enter later. It's better to finish early and go home to rest. Gu Jiao said, "Nothing, I'm just looking around." Black Wind King took a few steps forward. At this time, the carriage had successfully passed the checkpoint at the city gate. The reason why it was smooth was because Gu Jiao found that the guards seemed to know the owner of the carriage and let him in without checking. There is only one person in the world who looks like my husband. But wasn't he arranged by Shangguan Yen to take refuge in a safe place? In order to not let him slip out, Shangguan Yen gave the guards a strict order. Of course, Gu Jiao felt that Shangguan Yen may not know her son's character very well. Even Wang Su could be fooled like that. The strange thing was, why was he at the border? And he looked like he was doing well in Poo City? What's going on? She didn't think she was wrong, but she also didn't think that guy had a reason to appear in the Jin army's territory. Both situations were unreasonable. What are you muttering about? Tang Yueshan whispered, "You're so weird this early in the morning. Is it because the crown princess came and reminded you of your little husband?" The crown princess was Xiao Heng's mother. It was normal to think of her when seeing her. Gu Jiao turned to look at him. "How do you know that the crown princess is Xiao Heng's mother?" Tang Yueshan didn't hide it. Empress Dowager Zhuang and the old chancellor said it. Otherwise, who would dare to think about such a big secret? Speaking of which, old Xiao is really lucky. I also know that he saved the female slave from Yen country. Gu Jiao asked curiously, "How do you know?" Tang Yueshan blurted out, "I was there." Gu Jiao, Tang Yueshan's expression changed. "Oh no, I let it slip. Sigh, forget it, forget it. Since I've already leaked it, there's no harm in leaking more." Tang Yueshan heaved a long sigh. "It's a little complicated. Do you think it was old Xiao who brought the crown princess back from the barracks? There are a few military prostitutes in the barracks, and one of them is an outstanding beauty. The subordinates don't dare to enjoy her for themselves, so the first thing they think of is to offer her to their boss? Needless to say, Gu Jiao did make such a guess. Actually, no. Tang Yueshan waved his hand. In fact, Xiao Ji did not bring her back from the military camp. He brought her back from the underground dojo. At that time, the experts from the underground dojo from the 6 nations had gathered. Xiao Ji was not the number one of the 6 nations. The number one of the 6 nations had taken a fancy to that female slave and wanted to snatch her away. The female slave asked for help from Xiao Ji. Xiao Ji was a hero who could not resist the charms of a beautiful woman, so he challenged the number one. The result was as one could imagine, the number one was beaten badly. At that time, Xiao Ji was not as strong as he was later. The price he had to pay to defeat the number one of the 6 nations was huge. He always thought that Xiao Ji had sent her away after playing with her. After all, Xiao Ji had always been a man who walked among thousands of flowers, but not a single leaf stuck to him. Who would have thought that the two of them had a child? However, Xiao Ji probably didn't know that when Shangguan Yen was locked in the cage of the underground dojo, she didn't casually ask him for help. As early as in the Great Yen Kingdom, Shangguan Yen had knocked off Xiao Ji's mask. Shangguan Yen saw Xiao Ji's face. He still remembered the little girl's stunned expression. My name is Yen. Who are you? Xiao Ji was seriously injured in the last duel. His 5 senses were damaged, so he didn't see or hear clearly. He didn't speak, just expressionlessly picked up the mask on the ground and put it on. Then, he walked away without looking back. The young girl Shangguan Yen stared at Xiao Ji's back for a long time. That look, it's the same as when I look at my sister-in-law. Tang Yueshan added in his heart. After listening to Tang Yueshan's words, Gu Jiao was surprised. It turns out that the number one of the underground dojo in the capital is Marquis Xian Ping. No wonder he was always elusive. Ever since his waist was injured, he had never gone to that place again. Thinking of something, Gu Jiao asked again. Are you also in the underground dojo? Tang Yueshan straightened his back. Cough, almost. Gu Jiao, pay attention to your identity. Tang Yueshan's face darkened and his body bent a little. What was your rank? Gu Jiao asked again. Tang Yueshan laughed. I didn't participate in this boring duel. Gu Jiao squinted at him. It seems that your rank is very low. Hey, do you have to look down on me like that? I said I was too lazy to duel. If it weren't for the occasion, Tang Yueshan would have exploded on the spot. He made a gesture. The third. In the underground dojo of the Zhao Kingdom, only the top 3 were qualified to go to the Yen Kingdom. Who's the second? Gu Jiao asked. Tang Yueshan snorted. Who else could it be? But I know who they are, but they don't know who I am. This is my ability. Gu Jiao, so Gu Chongqing defeated you to get the qualification to go to the Yen Kingdom. Tang Yueshan, that's because I let him win. I knew he was Gu Chongqing. Gu Jiao curled her lips. Hindsight. Tang Yueshan glared. I'm telling the truth. In the end, Tang Yueshan didn't have the chance to prove himself because it was their turn. We came from Ziyang City. My grandfather is a businessman of the Jin Kingdom. My whole family was imprisoned by them. It was not easy for me to escape. Please let me go to the city to seek refuge. Gu Jiao was just reciting the lines this time. She didn't show her excellent acting skills. The effect was unexpectedly good. My grandfather has been in the Yen Kingdom for decades. I was born and raised in Ziyang City. I don't speak the Jin language well. As Gu Jiao spoke, she took out a bag of silver and gave it to the guard. The two entered the city. It's not as strict as I thought. Is it because the Jin army is not disciplined and the defense is loose? Or is it because the Jin army is not afraid of spies in the city? Gu Jiao thought while looking at the scene in Pucheng. Pu City was a much larger and more prosperous city than Ziyang City. Its population was twice that of Chuyang City, and the amount of taxes it paid to the imperial court every year was 3 times that of Chuyang City. However, what Gu Jiao saw now was not what a large city should look like. The doors of the shops were closed, the streets were empty, and the signboards were torn to pieces by the Jin army. The city was bleeding. "Let her go! You bastards! Let her go! Let her go!" A woman's sobs and curses came from a shop not far away. She hugged the leg of a Jin soldier tightly. The soldier and his companion were dragging a beautiful and well-dressed little girl. The little girl was already half dizzy and had no strength to resist or cry. She could only let the 2 soldiers drag her into the alley. Judging from her clothes and jewelry, she was the daughter of a rich family. In the past, she was the center of attention. However, Puching had become the territory of the Jin army. Her identity and status were not worth mentioning. It had been like this since ancient times. Jin Jun kicked the woman away and dragged the little girl into the depths of the alley with his belt. Who knew how many of these things had happened in places that they had not seen? Gu Jiao held the reins tightly. She was very angry. These Jin soldiers really made her angry. War is like this. Tang Yueshan sighed and raised his hand to block her eyes. "Okay, don't look. I will take care of it." Saying so, he dismounted and entered the alley. With his martial arts, it was easy for him to take care of the 2 Jin soldiers. In the blink of an eye, the 2 Jin soldiers died in his hands. He found a place to dispose of the bodies. The woman who had fainted woke up and ran into the alley to take her daughter away. The 2 were so scared that they forgot to thank him. When they reacted and wanted to kowtow to their benefactor, Tang Yueshan had already returned to his horse and left with Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao rode on the black wind horse and walked on the deserted street. She said, "The situation in Puching is worse than expected." When the Nangong family took over Chuyang City, they used the banner of killing the tyrant, restoring order, and stabilizing the country. Thus, they treated the people well. The Jin army did not have any fear. They were here to invade. The people of the Yen kingdom were not people. They were resources that they could take away at will. "We must end the war as soon as possible," she said seriously. "Someone is coming," Tang Yueshan said. The 2 dismounted. A group of about 100 Jin soldiers walked towards them. The leader was a corporal. When the 2 passed by, the corporal just glanced at them. A poor young master and a servant, there was nothing to be concerned about. The corporal left with his men. After making sure they were far away, Tang Yueshan said, "I have been here for so long and I still don't know where old Gu is. If I knew I would come, I would have asked him to give me a signal." Gu Jiao said indifferently, "We will investigate ourselves. The investigation is secondary. The main thing is that I want to see you 2 betray each other." Tang Yueshan's strong desire to live made him suppress the words. "Where are you going to investigate?" he asked. "The mayor's mansion," Gu Jiao said. Tang Yueshan almost choked. He thought that Gong's son you probably lived in the mayor's mansion. There were many masters there. Even he did not dare to be so arrogant. "You are really bold." Nothing ventured, nothing gained. All the valuable information of the Jin army was in the mayor's mansion. Thus, even if the mayor's mansion was a dragon's pool and a tiger's den, they had to go. "You don't have to go," Gu Jiao said. "This war has nothing to do with the Tang family." Xiao Hang was the son of Marquis Xianping. It was reasonable for him to help his son conquer the Yen kingdom. Tang Yueshan did not have to risk his life. Tang Yueshan snorted coldly. "Who are you looking down on?" A girl dared to go, but he, the marshal, dared not. Seeing this, Gu Jiao did not say anything more. The 2 of them went to the mayor's mansion and found an empty courtyard to settle down the Black Wind King and the Black Wind Cavalry. "Why do I feel that you are so familiar with the border? Have you been here before?" "Kind of." She was killed in the Puching city in that chaotic battle. She was killed by a peacock feather sword. Her heart was pierced from the back. The owner of the sword was a very powerful swordsman. He was dressed in black and wore a bronze mask with fangs. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. Please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. You can find all the novels that you can't find on the internet. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_826/1056479093. HTML Genius memorized the website's address. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Version Website. zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.